In the narrow streets of Sicily, one man hid in plain sight for 30 years. In the mountains of Mexico, a farmer ran the world's largest cartel without spending a single night in prison. And in the back streets of Boston, a mob boss committed murders for years while being protected by the FBI itself. These stories are not just about crime. They are proof of sinister alliances with governments, societies, and invisibility. How could some vanish like ghosts while others became criminals under protection?
You're walking through 1960s Brooklyn now, where the scent of fresh bread drifts from Italian bakeries, and one man's invisible empire controls New York's criminal underworld without firing a shot. Carlo Gambino ruled America's most powerful crime family for nearly 2 decades, while maintaining such a low profile that most Americans never heard his name until after his death. His organization dominated construction, trucking, and waterfront operations throughout New York, generating hundreds of millions through systematic corruption rather than spectacular violence. Born in Sicily's Palermo province, he immigrated to Brooklyn as a stowaway in 1921 and learned that real power operated quietly, avoiding the publicity that destroyed flashier crime bosses. His code emphasized family loyalty and business efficiency. Blood relatives held key positions, violence was used sparingly and strategically, and steady profits were more valuable than dramatic headlines. The Appalachian Meeting of 1957 exposed organized crime's national structure, but Gambino avoided arrest by leaving early. His leadership transformed the American Mafia from territorial gang warfare into sophisticated white-collar crime that penetrated legitimate business and government. He died peacefully in his bed on October 15, 1976, having never spent significant time in prison despite controlling one of history's most powerful criminal organizations. How does a man become America's most powerful crime boss while remaining virtually unknown to the public? Hey friends, if you're enjoying this journey through the shadows of history, don't forget to subscribe for more stories that unveil the secrets hidden in plain sight. You're driving through Sicily's countryside now, where ancient olive groves hide modern secrets, and Europe's most wanted fugitive lived invisibly for 3 decades among people who saw him every day. Matteo Messina Denaro became Cosa Nostra's last great leader while evading capture for 30 years, earning the nickname Diabolic, after an Italian comic book character known for impossible escapes and invisible presence. His organization controlled drug trafficking, money laundering, and political corruption throughout western Sicily, generating billions while he remained hidden in plain sight among friends and family who protected him through Omerta's ancient codes. Born into a powerful mafia dynasty in Castelvetrano, he inherited leadership of Trapani province's criminal activities and transformed local operations into international enterprises spanning Europe, South America, and Africa. His code combined traditional Sicilian honor with modern business methods. Family loyalty superseded all other considerations. Systematic corruption was more profitable than violence, and invisibility provided better protection than armed guards or fortified compounds. His role in the 1992 assassinations of judges Giovanni Falcone and Paolo Borsellino made him one of Italy's most wanted criminals. Captured on January 16, 2023, while receiving cancer treatment at a private clinic in Palermo, he died in prison on September 25, 2023, taking countless secrets to his grave. How does a man remain invisible for 3 decades while controlling one of Europe's most powerful criminal organizations? You're walking through Mexico's Sierra Madre mountains now, where mist, clings to pine forests, and one man's agricultural empire masks the world's most sophisticated drug trafficking network. Ismael El Mayo Zambada controlled the Sinaloa cartel for over 4 decades without ever spending a night in prison, demonstrating how strategic thinking and political corruption could provide better protection than violence and intimidation. His organization dominated cocaine, heroin, and fentanyl trafficking from Mexico to the United States, generating tens of billions annually through sophisticated smuggling networks that included tunnels, submarines, and corrupt officials at every level of government. Born into a farming family in rural Sinaloa, he learned that patience and planning were more valuable than spectacular displays of power that attracted unwanted government attention. His code emphasized business efficiency and political relationships. Steady bribes were more effective than threats. Reliable partnerships generated more profit than territorial wars, and invisibility was the ultimate form of protection. Unlike flashier cartel leaders, he avoided publicity and lived modestly in rural areas where his agricultural businesses provided perfect cover for criminal operations. His arrest on July 25, 1924, by U.S. authorities ended one of the longest criminal careers in modern history. Though his organization continues operating under leadership structures he established over decades of careful planning. How does a farmer become the world's most successful drug trafficker while avoiding prison for over 40 years? You're sitting in a quiet Eastern European cafe now, where intellectual conversations flow over coffee, and one man's genius-level intellect transforms traditional organized crime into sophisticated financial fraud. Semyon Mogilevich combined academic intelligence with criminal ambition to create a global financial empire based on complex fraud schemes, rather than traditional territorial control or violent intimidation. His organization specialized in money laundering, securities fraud, and international banking scams across Eastern Europe, North America, and Israel, generating billions through schemes so sophisticated that law enforcement agencies struggled to understand them, let alone prosecute them effectively. Born in Ukraine during the Soviet era, he studied economics and mathematics before applying his academic knowledge to criminal enterprises that exploited weaknesses in emerging post-Soviet financial systems. His code emphasized intellectual superiority and systematic corruption. Careful planning was superior to random violence. Educated criminals were more valuable than street thugs, and complex schemes provided better protection than traditional organized crime methods. The FBI called him the most dangerous mobster in the world for his ability to manipulate international financial systems while remaining virtually immune to prosecution. Despite multiple international arrest warrants, he continues operating from Moscow under Russian government protection, demonstrating how intellectual criminal enterprises can transcend traditional law enforcement capabilities. His influence on modern organized crime extends far beyond his personal operations, having taught countless criminals how education and planning could generate more wealth than violence. What happens when genius-level intelligence is applied to criminal enterprise in an interconnected global economy? You're standing in a Naples art gallery now, where priceless paintings hang on pristine walls, and one man's appreciation for beauty masks his role in Europe's largest cocaine trafficking network. Raphael Imperiale became known as the Van Gogh smuggler, after police discovered stolen masterpieces worth over $50 million in his possession, demonstrating how modern criminals use art collection and cultural sophistication to launder drug profits and gain social respectability. His organization controlled cocaine importation from South America to Europe, generating hundreds of millions through sophisticated smuggling networks that operated with corporate efficiency and minimal violence. Born into a working-class Neapolitan family, he learned that cultural refinement and artistic appreciation could provide both personal satisfaction and practical benefits for criminals seeking to integrate into legitimate society. His code emphasized cultural sophistication and business professionalism. Educated criminals were superior to street thugs. Artistic appreciation demonstrated refined character, and legitimate business investments provided better long-term security than traditional criminal enterprises. His collection included paintings by Van Gogh and Picasso that had been stolen from Amsterdam's Van Gogh Museum in 2002. Artworks he returned to authorities as part of plea negotiations. Arrested in 2021 after years on Italy's most wanted list, he received a lengthy prison sentence while his case highlighted the intersection between high culture and international organized crime. His story demonstrates how modern criminals use cultural sophistication to transcend their criminal origins while building global enterprises. How does an appreciation for great art become both a criminal's greatest pleasure and ultimate downfall? You're walking through Dublin's financial district now, where glass towers reflect Irish prosperity, and one man's boxing connections mask an international drug trafficking empire spanning 3 continents. Christy Kinahan transformed Irish organized crime from local criminal enterprise into international drug trafficking network, earning the nickname the Dapper Don for his expensive clothing and sophisticated business methods that made him one of Europe's wealthiest criminals. His organization controlled cocaine importation from South America through European ports, generating billions while maintaining extensive operations in Ireland, Spain, Dubai, and other international locations that provided strategic advantages for money laundering and asset protection. Born into working-class Dublin, he learned that international thinking and cultural adaptation could overcome traditional limitations that confined most Irish criminals to local operations. His code emphasized family loyalty and international cooperation. Blood relatives held key positions in different countries. Strategic partnerships with other criminal organizations generated enormous profits, and legitimate business investments provided both cover and long-term financial security. His investment in professional boxing provided both personal interest and practical benefits, offering opportunities to meet wealthy individuals and launder money through sports-related businesses. Targeted by international law enforcement agencies, he operates primarily from Dubai, where extradition laws provide protection from European prosecution. His organization continues operating despite constant pressure, demonstrating how modern criminal enterprises adapt to global law enforcement through strategic location choices and sophisticated financial planning. How does a Dublin criminal become wealthy enough to influence international boxing while operating a global drug empire? You're entering a small Italian mountain town now, where church bells echo across stone streets and one man's invisible leadership controls vast criminal enterprises without anyone noticing his presence. Nicola Assisi controlled one of southern Italy's most successful 'ndrangheta operations, while maintaining such complete anonymity that law enforcement agencies barely knew his name until major investigations exposed his central role in international cocaine trafficking. His organization dominated drug importation from South America to Europe, generating billions through sophisticated networks that operated with minimal violence and maximum discretion. Born into a traditional 'ndrangheta family in Calabria, he learned that real power operated invisibly, avoiding the publicity and territorial conflicts that brought other crime bosses to government attention. His code emphasized absolute discretion and family loyalty. Successful operations remained completely unknown to outsiders. Business was conducted through intermediaries and coded communications, and traditional family structures provided better security than modern criminal innovations. His organization's control of European cocaine markets made him one of the wealthiest criminals in history, though his name never appeared in newspapers or popular culture until his arrest. His capture in 2018 surprised veteran investigators who had been tracking 'Ndrangheta operations for decades without realizing his central importance. He remains in maximum security prison today, having demonstrated how complete invisibility could provide ultimate protection for international criminal enterprises operating across multiple jurisdictions. How does remaining completely unknown become the most powerful form of protection for international criminal operations? You're walking through Naples' Secondigliano district now, where concrete housing projects stretch toward the horizon, and one man's seeming invincibility creates legends among criminals and civilians alike. Gennaro Licciardi earned the nickname the Immortal through his ability to survive multiple assassination attempts and continue controlling his Camorra clan despite constant warfare with rival organizations throughout Naples' most violent neighborhoods. His organization dominated drug trafficking, extortion, and illegal gambling throughout northern Naples, generating millions while maintaining territorial control through systematic violence that terrified both competitors and civilians. Born into a family already established in Camorra activities, he inherited leadership during the 1980s, when cocaine trafficking created unprecedented opportunities for wealth and territorial expansion throughout Naples' sprawling suburban districts. His code emphasized territorial control and family honor. Neighborhood boundaries were defended through immediate violence. Family members came before all other considerations, and personal respect was maintained through spectacular displays of power that demonstrated organizational strength. His ability to survive numerous murder attempts, including shootings, bombings, and poisoning attempts, created an aura of invincibility that attracted followers and intimidated enemies throughout Naples' criminal underworld. His arrest in 1993 and subsequent conviction for multiple murders ended his reign, though his reputation for survival continued influencing Camorra culture and methods. He died in prison in 2009, having demonstrated how personal charisma and apparent invincibility could create powerful criminal organizations in urban environments. What happens when a crime boss becomes so legendary that his survival seems supernatural to followers and enemies? You're sitting in a 1980s Neapolitan University classroom now, where academic discussions mask the presence of one of the Camorra's most intellectual and deadly leaders. Antonio Bardellino combined university education with criminal leadership to create one of Naples's most sophisticated and violent Camorra organizations, earning the nickname the Professor for his academic background and systematic approach to territorial expansion. His clan controlled drug trafficking, political corruption, and territorial boundaries throughout the Caserta province, generating hundreds of millions while maintaining discipline through calculated violence that eliminated rivals and potential informants with academic precision. Born into a middle-class family, he earned a university degree in philosophy before applying intellectual methods to criminal enterprises that transformed traditional Camorra operations into sophisticated business organizations. His code emphasized intellectual planning and systematic violence. Careful analysis of territorial opportunities guided expansion decisions. Educated criminals were superior to street thugs, and spectacular elimination of enemies served both practical and psychological purposes. His organization's war with rival clans during the 1980s killed hundreds of people and demonstrated how academic intelligence could make criminal violence more efficient and terrifying. His assassination in 1988, likely ordered by former allies who feared his ambitions and intellectual superiority, ended one of the most unusual criminal careers in Italian history. His legacy influenced subsequent Camorra development, demonstrating how formal education could enhance rather than diminish criminal effectiveness when applied to traditional organized crime structures. How does university education transform traditional criminal methods into more sophisticated and deadly enterprises? You're walking through Caserta's industrial zones now, where concrete mixing trucks rumble past construction sites, and one man's control over cement creates an empire built on Italy's economic boom. Francesco Schiavone earned the nickname Sandokan after the Malaysian pirate hero of Italian adventure novels, controlling one of Italy's most powerful Camorra clans through systematic infiltration of the construction industry during the country's post-war economic expansion. His organization dominated concrete production, construction contracts, and waste disposal throughout Campania, generating billions through legal businesses that provided perfect cover for extensive criminal operations, including drug trafficking and political corruption. Born into a family already involved in local Camorra activities, he transformed small-scale neighborhood crime into industrial-level criminal enterprise that paralleled and often controlled legitimate economic development throughout southern Italy. His code emphasized business efficiency and territorial expansion. Legitimate businesses provided better long-term profits than traditional criminal activities. Systematic corruption was more valuable than spectacular violence, and economic control offered superior protection to armed intimidation. His organization's infiltration of major construction projects, including highways, airports, and public buildings, demonstrated how criminal enterprises could become integral to legitimate economic development. His arrest in 1998 and subsequent conviction for multiple crimes ended his reign, though investigations revealed the extent to which his organization had penetrated Italy's construction industry. He died in prison in 2021, having demonstrated how criminal organizations could achieve enormous power through systematic infiltration of legitimate business sectors, rather than traditional territorial control methods. How does controlling something as basic as concrete become the foundation for one of Italy's most powerful criminal empires? You're walking through 1980s Palermo now, where ancient palazzos hide modern criminal enterprises, and one man's complete anonymity makes him the most powerful crime boss no one has ever heard of. Rosario Riccobono controlled one of Sicily's most influential Cosa Nostra families, while remaining so invisible that law enforcement agencies barely knew his name until major investigations exposed his central role in international heroin trafficking. His organization dominated drug importation from Turkey and the Far East to Sicily and North America, generating hundreds of millions through networks that operated with diplomatic-level sophistication and minimal violence. Born into a traditional mafia family in Partana, he learned that real power operated completely behind the scenes, avoiding all publicity and maintaining relationships through intermediaries who protected his identity from government scrutiny. His code emphasized absolute invisibility and systematic corruption. Successful criminals remained unknown to everyone except essential partners. Business was conducted through carefully chosen representatives, and long-term relationships were more valuable than immediate profits. His organization's control of the Pizza Connection heroin network made him one of the most important figures in international drug trafficking history, though his name appeared in no newspapers or popular accounts until federal investigations exposed his operations. His assassination in 1982, likely ordered by rivals who feared his growing influence, ended one of organized crime's most successful attempts at complete anonymity. How does remaining completely unknown become the ultimate form of criminal power in an age of global surveillance? You're sitting in a quiet Calabrian village now, where traditional festivals mask ancient criminal rituals, and one man's ceremonial authority controls Europe's most powerful crime syndicate. Domenico Opedisano served as the 'Ndrangheta's supreme leader while maintaining the facade of a simple retired shepherd, demonstrating how traditional criminal hierarchies adapt to modern international operations through careful preservation of ancient customs and rituals. His organization coordinated cocaine trafficking operations across Europe, South America, and Australia, generating billions through networks that combined cutting-edge technology with centuries-old loyalty structures based on blood relationships and regional connections. Born into a family with deep 'Ndrangheta roots in Locri, he learned that ceremonial authority and traditional respect could provide more lasting power than modern criminal innovations that attracted unwanted government attention. His code emphasized ancient traditions and family honor. Blood relationships determined organizational hierarchy. Traditional rituals bound members through sacred oaths, and ceremonial authority superseded practical considerations when conflicts arose between old customs and modern opportunities. His arrest in 2010 revealed the extent to which traditional 'Ndrangheta structures had evolved into sophisticated international criminal enterprises while maintaining their original cultural foundations. He died in prison in 2021, having demonstrated how ancient criminal traditions could successfully adapt to global opportunities while preserving their essential character and effectiveness. How do centuries-old criminal traditions maintain their power and relevance in modern international organized crime? You're driving through Sicily's agricultural heartland now, where feudal estates stretch toward ancient mountains, and one man's aristocratic pretensions mask a billion-dollar drug trafficking empire. Salvatore Lo Piccolo earned the nickname the Baron for his aristocratic mannerisms and elaborate ceremonies that mixed traditional mafia rituals with personal delusions of nobility while controlling one of Sicily's most profitable criminal organizations. His San Lorenzo family dominated heroin and cocaine trafficking throughout western Sicily, generating enormous wealth through partnerships with South American cartels and European distribution networks that operated with corporate efficiency. Born into a family already established in Cosa Nostra activities, he inherited leadership during the 1990s and transformed local operations into international enterprises, while maintaining theatrical displays of traditional Sicilian honor and respect. His code combined ancient mafia traditions with personal grandiosity. Elaborate ceremonies demonstrated his authority and cultural sophistication. Traditional codes of silence protected organizational security, and spectacular displays of wealth reinforced his status among both criminals and civilians. His organization's control of Palermo's drug markets made him one of Italy's most wanted criminals, though he continued operating through strategic corruption and family loyalty that protected him from government pressure. His arrest in 2007 ended a career marked by successful criminal enterprise and unsuccessful attempts to recreate feudal authority structures in modern democratic society. He remains in maximum security prison, having demonstrated both the power and limitations of traditional criminal authority in contemporary organized crime. What happens when ancient aristocratic pretensions meet modern criminal enterprise in democratic societies? You're walking through Palermo's Giaculi district now, where lemon groves hide the headquarters of Sicily's most powerful crime syndicate, and one man's papal pretensions reshape Cosa Nostra's entire structure. Michele Greco earned the nickname the Pope for his role as head of the Sicilian Mafia Commission, and his ability to mediate disputes between rival families through diplomatic skill rather than violent confrontation. His organization controlled the Cosa Nostra's decision-making processes during its most powerful period, coordinating heroin trafficking, political corruption, and territorial agreements that generated billions while maintaining relative peace among traditionally violent criminal families. Born into the Greco crime dynasty of Giaculi, he inherited leadership of both his family and the broader Cosa Nostra structure during the 1970s, when international drug trafficking created unprecedented opportunities for wealth and territorial expansion. His code emphasized diplomatic authority and systematic planning. Careful negotiation was superior to immediate violence. Long-term strategies generated more sustainable profits than short-term territorial disputes, and maintaining organizational unity was more valuable than individual family ambitions. His leadership of the commission made him responsible for coordinating the assassinations of judges Giovanni Falcone and Paolo Borsellino in 1992. Attacks that marked the peak of Cosa Nostra's war against the Italian state. His arrest in 1986 and subsequent conviction for multiple murders ended his reign, though his influence on Cosa Nostra's organizational structure continued long after his imprisonment. He died in prison in 2008, having demonstrated how diplomatic leadership could create more lasting criminal power than traditional violent methods. How does diplomatic skill become more valuable than violence in coordinating international criminal enterprises? You're entering a Milan fashion boutique now, where luxury goods mask money laundering operations and one man's impeccable style conceals his role in Europe's cocaine trade. Giuseppe Farinella combined haute couture sophistication with criminal enterprise to create one of Italy's most successful money laundering operations, earning the nickname the Elegant One for his expensive clothing and refined tastes that provided perfect cover for extensive criminal activities. His organization controlled cocaine importation from South America while operating legitimate fashion and luxury goods businesses that laundered drug profits through high-end retail operations throughout northern Italy. Born into a working-class Sicilian family, he learned that cultural refinement and aesthetic sophistication could provide both personal satisfaction and practical advantages for criminals seeking to integrate into legitimate society while maintaining extensive criminal operations. His code emphasized style and discretion. Elegant appearance demonstrated professional competence and cultural sophistication. Legitimate businesses provided better protection than traditional criminal methods, and aesthetic appreciation was both personally fulfilling and professionally advantageous. His fashion boutiques and luxury goods stores provided perfect fronts for money laundering operations that processed hundreds of millions in drug profits while maintaining the appearance of successful legitimate business enterprises. His arrest in 2015 revealed the extent to which his criminal organization had penetrated Italy's fashion industry through systematic corruption and strategic business partnerships. He received a lengthy prison sentence, while investigations exposed how modern criminals use cultural sophistication and aesthetic appreciation to transcend their criminal origins while building international enterprises that operate across legal and illegal boundaries. How does impeccable fashion sense become both a criminal's greatest asset and most distinctive vulnerability? You're walking through Milan's financial district now, where international banks tower over designer boutiques and one man's global connections transform a northern Italian city into Europe's cocaine capital. Rocco Morabito controlled cocaine trafficking from South America to Europe through sophisticated networks that used Milan's financial and fashion industries to launder hundreds of millions in drug profits while maintaining extensive international operations. His organization coordinated with Colombian cartels and European distribution networks to supply cocaine throughout the continent, generating billions through partnerships that demonstrated the global nature of modern organized crime. Born into a 'Ndrangheta family in Calabria, he learned that international thinking and cultural adaptation could overcome traditional limitations that confined most Italian criminals to regional operations within their ancestral territories. His code emphasized global cooperation and business efficiency. International partnerships generated more profit than territorial disputes. Systematic corruption was more effective than violence, and legitimate business investments provided both cover and long-term financial security. His ability to coordinate operations across multiple continents while maintaining his base in Milan demonstrated how modern criminal enterprises transcend traditional geographical and cultural boundaries through strategic thinking and technological innovation. His arrest in Uruguay in 2017 followed years of international investigation that tracked his movements across Europe, South America, and Africa. Extradited to Italy in 2019, he received a lengthy prison sentence while his case highlighted the increasingly global nature of organized crime operations that require international cooperation for effective law enforcement response. How does a Calabrian criminal transform Milan into the European headquarters of a global cocaine empire? You're driving past Naples construction sites now, where concrete mixers rumble through traffic and one man's control over building materials creates an empire built on Italy's infrastructure development. Antonio Iovine controlled one of Italy's most powerful Camorra clans through systematic infiltration of the construction industry, earning the nickname the Concrete King for his organization's dominance over cement production and building contracts throughout southern Italy. His clan generated billions through legitimate construction businesses that provided perfect cover for extensive criminal operations, including drug trafficking, political corruption, and territorial control over Naples's northern suburbs. Born into a family already established in Camorra activities, he transformed traditional neighborhood crime into industrial-level criminal enterprise that paralleled and often controlled legitimate economic development throughout the region. His code emphasized business integration and territorial expansion. Legitimate businesses provided better long-term profits than traditional criminal activities. Systematic corruption was more valuable than spectacular violence, and economic control offered superior protection to armed confrontation. His organization's infiltration of major infrastructure projects, including highways, airports, and public buildings, demonstrated how criminal enterprises could become integral to legitimate economic development while maintaining extensive illegal operations. His arrest in 2010 ended a career that had made him one of Italy's wealthiest criminals, while revealing the extent to which organized crime had penetrated the country's construction industry. He remains in prison serving multiple sentences, having demonstrated how controlling basic industrial materials could create enormous criminal power through systematic business infiltration rather than traditional territorial methods. How does controlling concrete and construction become the foundation for one of Europe's most powerful criminal empires? You're sitting in a Palermo gentleman's club now, where leather armchairs and crystal decanters create an atmosphere of refined sophistication that masks one man's role in international heroin trafficking. Francesco Bonura earned the nickname the Gentleman for his impeccable manners and cultural refinement that provided perfect cover for his central role in the Pizza Connection heroin network that supplied American markets during the 1970s and 1980s. His organization coordinated heroin importation from Turkey and the Far East, while maintaining extensive cultural interests that included art collection, classical music patronage, and support for traditional Sicilian festivals. Born into a middle-class Palermo family, he learned that cultural sophistication and social respectability could provide both personal satisfaction and practical advantages for criminals seeking to operate at the highest levels of international drug trafficking. His code emphasized cultural refinement and business professionalism. Educated criminals were superior to street thugs. Cultural appreciation demonstrated refined character, and legitimate cultural activities provided excellent cover for extensive criminal operations. His art collection and cultural patronage made him a respected figure in Palermo's cultural establishment, while his criminal organization generated hundreds of millions through sophisticated international drug trafficking networks. His arrest in 1984 as part of the Pizza Connection prosecutions revealed his central role in one of history's most successful international drug trafficking operations. He died in prison in 1988, having demonstrated how cultural sophistication could enhance rather than diminish criminal effectiveness when applied to international organized crime operations. How does becoming a patron of the arts provide the perfect cover for international drug trafficking operations? You're walking through Reggio Calabria's ancient streets now, where Greek ruins overlook modern ports, and one man's ceremonial authority controls the 'Ndrangheta's most sacred traditions. Pasquale Condello served as one of the 'Ndrangheta's highest-ranking ceremonial leaders, while maintaining extensive criminal operations that demonstrated how traditional authority structures adapt to modern international opportunities. His organization controlled cocaine trafficking and territorial boundaries throughout Calabria, while preserving ancient rituals and customs that bound members through sacred oaths and blood relationships. Born into a family with deep 'Ndrangheta roots, he learned that ceremonial authority and traditional respect could provide more lasting power than modern criminal innovations that attracted unwanted government attention and disrupted ancient social structures. His code emphasized ancient traditions and territorial honor. Blood relationships determined organizational hierarchy. Traditional ceremonies bound members through sacred rituals, and territorial boundaries were defended through methods that had remained essentially unchanged for over a century. His role in 'Ndrangheta ceremonies made him one of the organization's most respected figures, despite his relatively small territorial base, demonstrating how traditional authority could transcend geographical limitations through cultural and ceremonial importance. His arrest in 2008 followed decades of investigation that revealed his central role in preserving 'Ndrangheta traditions while adapting them to international criminal opportunities. He remains in maximum security prison, having demonstrated how ancient criminal traditions maintain their power and relevance through careful preservation of cultural foundations and ceremonial authority structures. How do ancient ceremonial traditions maintain their power in modern international criminal organizations? You're walking through Sicily's agricultural heartland now, where ancient farming traditions hide modern criminal enterprises, and one man's rural simplicity masks sophisticated international operations. Benedetto Spera controlled one of Sicily's most powerful Cosa Nostra families, while maintaining the lifestyle and appearance of a simple farmer. demonstrating how traditional rural authority could adapt to modern international criminal opportunities. His organization dominated heroin and cocaine trafficking throughout western Sicily, while preserving agricultural businesses that provided both legitimate income and perfect cover for extensive criminal operations. Born into a farming family already involved in mafia activities, he learned that rural simplicity and traditional agricultural knowledge could provide better protection than urban sophistication or modern criminal methods that attracted unwanted government attention. His code emphasized rural traditions and family loyalty. Agricultural businesses provided legitimate cover for criminal operations. Traditional farming communities offered protection through ancient codes of silence, and rural authority structures were more stable than urban criminal organizations. His organization's control of drug trafficking routes through Sicily's agricultural regions made him one of the island's most powerful crime bosses, despite his deliberately modest lifestyle and rural base of operations. His arrest in 2001 revealed the extent to which rural Sicily remained under traditional mafia control, even as the organization adapted to international drug trafficking opportunities. He died in prison in 2017, having demonstrated how traditional rural authority could successfully compete with urban criminal sophistication in modern international organized crime. How does maintaining the lifestyle of a simple farmer provide the perfect cover for international drug trafficking operations? You're entering a Palermo medical clinic now, where the scent of antiseptic mingles with whispers of power, and one man's healing profession provides perfect cover for deadly criminal enterprises. Giovanni Motisi combined medical practice with mafia leadership to create one of Sicily's most sophisticated criminal organizations, earning the nickname The Doctor for his professional degree and systematic approach to both healing and harming. His Pagliarelli family controlled drug trafficking, extortion, and political corruption throughout western Palermo, generating millions while maintaining the facade of legitimate medical practice that provided perfect cover for criminal activities. Born into a middle-class family, he earned his medical degree before discovering that criminal enterprise offered more excitement and profit than traditional medical practice, though he continued treating patients to maintain his professional cover. His code emphasized professional competence and systematic planning. Medical knowledge enhanced his understanding of human psychology and organizational management. Careful preparation prevented unnecessary risks, and legitimate professional standing provided protection from government scrutiny. His medical practice allowed him to treat wounded criminals, collect intelligence about rival families, and maintain relationships with wealthy and powerful individuals who needed both medical and criminal services. His arrest in 1993 ended a career that demonstrated how professional training could enhance criminal effectiveness rather than diminish it. He died in prison in 2007, having shown how legitimate professional skills could be applied to criminal enterprises with devastating results. How does medical training become an asset for criminal leadership rather than an obstacle to it? You're sitting in a quiet Sicilian office now, where ledger books contain secrets more dangerous than weapons, and one man's mathematical precision transforms chaos into criminal efficiency. Antonino Giuffre served as the Cosa Nostra's chief financial officer during its most profitable period, earning the nickname the Accountant for his ability to manage complex money laundering operations and coordinate financial relationships between criminal families. His organization controlled the systematic laundering of drug profits through legitimate businesses, investment schemes, and international banking relationships that generated billions while remaining virtually invisible to financial investigators. Born into a family with traditional Mafia connections, he learned that mathematical skills and financial knowledge could provide more lasting criminal power than violence or territorial control, creating wealth through systematic organization rather than dramatic confrontation. His code emphasized financial efficiency and systematic corruption. Careful record-keeping prevented organizational conflicts, strategic investments generated legitimate wealth, and financial relationships were more valuable than traditional territorial boundaries. His cooperation with law enforcement in 2002 provided unprecedented insight into Cosa Nostra's financial operations and international relationships, revealing the sophisticated business methods that had made the organization one of the world's wealthiest criminal enterprises. His testimony led to hundreds of convictions and exposed financial networks that spanned Europe, South America, and North America. He remains in witness protection, having demonstrated how accounting skills could become the foundation for international criminal finance, while ultimately providing the detailed records that destroyed the organizations he had helped build. How does mathematical precision become both a criminal organization's greatest strength and ultimate vulnerability? You're walking through Naples' narrow streets now, where ancient stones echo with footsteps, and one man's complete silence creates more fear than any spoken threat ever could. Gaetano Grado controlled one of Naples' most powerful Camorra clans, while maintaining such absolute silence that law enforcement agencies struggled to gather evidence against him, despite decades of investigation into his extensive criminal activities. His organization dominated drug trafficking, extortion, and territorial control throughout central Naples, generating millions through systematic criminal enterprises that operated with military-style discipline and minimal communication. Born into a family already established in Camorra activities, he learned that silence provided better protection than any weapon or fortress, creating an aura of mystery and invincibility that made him legendary among both criminals and law enforcement officials. His code was absolute silence. No unnecessary words, no public statements, no recorded conversations that could be used as evidence, and immediate elimination of anyone who violated the organization's communication protocols. His organization's operations were coordinated through gestures, written notes, and intermediaries who protected his direct involvement in criminal activities, while maintaining his absolute authority over territorial boundaries and financial operations. His arrest in 2015 followed years of investigation that required innovative surveillance techniques to penetrate his wall of silence. He remains in maximum security prison, having demonstrated how complete silence could create criminal power that transcended traditional methods of intimidation and control, while ultimately proving insufficient protection against modern investigative techniques. How does absolute silence become a more powerful criminal weapon than violence or intimidation? You're driving through Caserta's industrial zones now, where heavy machinery reshapes the landscape, and one man's nickname reflects both his construction business and his approach to eliminating obstacles. Giuseppe Cetola earned the nickname the Bulldozer for his construction company operations and his systematic approach to eliminating anyone who threatened his Camorra clan's control over territorial boundaries and business opportunities throughout northern Campania. His organization controlled construction contracts, waste disposal, and drug trafficking, while maintaining legitimate businesses that provided perfect cover for extensive criminal operations, including political corruption and territorial violence. Born into a working-class family, he built his criminal empire through careful coordination of legal and illegal enterprises that made detection nearly impossible, while generating enormous profits through systematic infiltration of legitimate business sectors. His code emphasized territorial control and business integration. Construction projects provided opportunities for money laundering and territorial expansion. Legitimate businesses offered protection from government scrutiny, and systematic elimination of competitors was necessary for maintaining organizational dominance. His organization's war with rival clans during the 2000s demonstrated both his tactical abilities and his willingness to use spectacular violence when territorial boundaries were challenged by competitors or government intervention. His arrest in 2009 ended a career that had made him one of Italy's most feared criminals, while revealing the extent to which organized crime had penetrated the country's construction industry. He received multiple life sentences, while his case highlighted the challenges of combating criminal organizations that successfully integrate legitimate and illegal business operations. How does legitimate construction work become the perfect foundation for criminal territorial control and money laundering? You're walking through Rome's modern suburbs now, where residential developments hide criminal enterprises and one man's technical expertise transforms traditional crime into sophisticated business operations. Ernesto Diotaiuti combined engineering training with criminal leadership to create one of Central Italy's most technologically advanced criminal organizations, demonstrating how technical education could enhance traditional criminal methods through systematic application of professional knowledge. His clan controlled drug trafficking, extortion, and illegal gambling throughout Rome's peripheral districts, generating millions through criminal enterprises that operated with corporate efficiency and technological sophistication that surprised law enforcement agencies. Born into a working-class Roman family, he earned his engineering degree before discovering that technical skills could be applied to criminal enterprises with devastating effectiveness, creating organizational advantages that traditional criminals could not match. His code emphasized technical precision and systematic planning. Engineering principles enhanced operational efficiency. Technical knowledge provided tactical advantages, and professional training created opportunities for legitimate business integration that protected criminal operations. His organization's use of advanced communications, surveillance equipment, and logistical planning made them nearly immune to traditional law enforcement methods, while their technical capabilities allowed them to coordinate complex criminal operations across multiple jurisdictions. His arrest in 2010 revealed the extent to which technical education had transformed traditional Roman criminal organizations into sophisticated enterprises that challenged conventional assumptions about organized crime capabilities. He remains in prison serving multiple sentences, having demonstrated how professional technical training could revolutionize criminal organizations while ultimately providing law enforcement with new challenges requiring equally sophisticated investigative responses. How does engineering training transform traditional criminal methods into technologically sophisticated criminal enterprises? You're sitting in a 1990s Naples office now, where financial records document both legitimate business success and systematic criminal enterprise that generated wealth through calculated violence and strategic planning. Pasquale Galasso combined accounting skills with Camorra leadership to create one of Naples's most financially sophisticated criminal organizations, while maintaining detailed records that ultimately provided law enforcement with unprecedented insight into organized crime operations. His clan controlled construction contracts, drug trafficking, and political corruption throughout the Naples region, generating hundreds of millions through systematic criminal enterprises that operated with corporate efficiency and meticulous financial planning. Born into a family already involved in Camorra activities, he learned that financial management and systematic record-keeping could provide more sustainable criminal power than traditional territorial violence, creating wealth through careful business planning rather than dramatic confrontation. His code emphasized financial efficiency and systematic documentation. Detailed records prevented organizational conflicts and facilitated business planning. Strategic investments generated legitimate wealth alongside criminal profits, and professional financial management was more valuable than traditional criminal methods. His decision to cooperate with law enforcement in 1992 provided detailed financial records that exposed the economic relationships between criminal organizations, legitimate businesses, and political institutions throughout southern Italy. His testimony led to hundreds of convictions, while his detailed records revealed the sophisticated business methods that had made modern organized crime one of Italy's most powerful economic forces. He remains in witness protection, having demonstrated how accounting skills could simultaneously build and destroy criminal empires through the systematic documentation that provided both organizational strength and evidentiary vulnerability. How do detailed financial records become both a criminal organization's greatest asset and ultimate destruction? You're walking through a Neapolitan literary cafe now, where poetry readings mask criminal planning sessions, and one man's artistic sensibilities conceal his role in systematic territorial violence. Carmine Alfieri earned the nickname The Poet for his love of literature and artistic expression that provided cultural sophistication to one of Naples's most violent Camorra organizations during the bloody clan wars of the 1980s. His organization controlled drug trafficking, extortion, and territorial boundaries throughout the Naples region, generating millions while maintaining cultural interests that included poetry writing, literary patronage, and support for traditional Neapolitan artistic expressions. Born into a family already established in Camorra activities, he learned that cultural refinement and artistic appreciation could provide both personal fulfillment and practical advantages for criminals seeking to transcend their violent origins while maintaining territorial control. His code combined cultural sophistication with territorial violence. Artistic expression demonstrated refined character and intellectual superiority. Cultural patronage provided social respectability and political connections. And spectacular violence was necessary for maintaining organizational dominance over territorial boundaries. His organization's war with rival clans resulted in hundreds of deaths, while his literary interests made him a paradoxical figure who combined aesthetic sensitivity with systematic brutality in ways that fascinated both criminals and law enforcement officials. His arrest in 1992 ended a career that demonstrated the complex relationship between cultural refinement and criminal violence in modern organized crime. He died in prison in 2016, having shown how artistic sensibilities could coexist with criminal leadership, while providing neither moral guidance nor practical protection from the consequences of systematic violence. How does artistic sensitivity coexist with criminal violence in the paradoxical world of organized crime leadership? You're walking through Naples's fish market now, where the morning catch mingles with the scent of the sea, and one man's control over seafood distribution creates an empire built on basic necessities. Luigi Giuliano controlled one of Naples's most profitable criminal enterprises through systematic domination of the city's fish markets, earning the nickname the King of Fish for his organization's control over seafood distribution that generated enormous profits while providing essential services to the community. His Camorra clan dominated both legitimate fish trading and illegal activities, including drug trafficking, extortion, and territorial control throughout Naples' port areas and commercial districts. Born into a family already involved in fish trading, he learned that controlling basic necessities could provide more sustainable criminal power than spectacular illegal enterprises, creating wealth through systematic business control rather than dramatic criminal activities. His code emphasized business integration and community service. Legitimate businesses provided both cover and genuine community value. Systematic control over essential services generated steady profits and political protection, and traditional business relationships were more valuable than temporary criminal opportunities. His organization's control of Naples's fish markets made him indispensable to restaurants, markets, and ordinary citizens who depended on his distribution networks for their daily needs, while providing perfect cover for extensive money laundering and criminal coordination activities. His arrest in 2002 revealed the extent to which organized crime had penetrated Naples' legitimate economy through systematic control of basic commercial activities. He received a lengthy prison sentence, while his case demonstrated how criminal organizations could achieve enormous power through control of mundane but essential business sectors rather than spectacular illegal enterprises. How does controlling something as basic as fish distribution become the foundation for a criminal empire? You're sitting in a 1980s Italian university lecture hall now, where academic discussions provide cover for criminal planning, and one man's intellectual approach transforms traditional territorial crime into sophisticated business enterprise. Antonio Bardolino combined university education with Camorra leadership to create one of southern Italy's most intellectually sophisticated criminal organizations, demonstrating how academic training could enhance rather than diminish criminal effectiveness through systematic application of theoretical knowledge. His clan controlled drug trafficking, political corruption, and territorial boundaries throughout the Caserta province, generating hundreds of millions through criminal enterprises that operated with academic precision and intellectual rigor that surprised traditional law enforcement approaches. Born into a working-class family, he earned his university degree in philosophy before discovering that intellectual training could provide significant advantages for criminal organizations seeking to transcend traditional territorial limitations through strategic thinking and systematic planning. His code emphasized intellectual superiority and systematic analysis. Academic training enhanced criminal planning and organizational management. Intellectual approach was superior to traditional territorial violence, and systematic study of criminal opportunities generated more sustainable profits than random illegal activities. His organization's systematic approach to criminal enterprise included detailed analysis of market opportunities, strategic planning for territorial expansion, and intellectual coordination of criminal activities that operated more like business enterprises than traditional territorial gangs. His assassination in 1988, likely ordered by rivals who feared his intellectual superiority and systematic approach to criminal organization, ended one of the most unusual criminal careers in Italian history. How does university education enhance rather than diminish criminal effectiveness in modern organized crime? You're walking through modern Sicily now, where ancient traditions meet contemporary challenges, and one man's inheritance of his father's criminal legacy creates both opportunities and impossible expectations. Salvatore Raina Jr. inherited one of Sicily's most infamous criminal legacies, while struggling to establish his own identity, separate from his father's reputation as Cosa Nostra's most brutal leader during the organization's war against the Italian state. His attempts to rebuild family influence faced constant law enforcement scrutiny and organizational suspicion about his loyalty, competence, and commitment to traditional criminal values versus modern opportunities. Born into criminal royalty as the son of Toto Riina, he learned that inherited criminal authority could be both an enormous advantage and an impossible burden, creating expectations that no individual could fulfill, while attracting attention that made traditional criminal operations nearly impossible. His code emphasized family honor and traditional loyalty. Inherited obligations superseded personal preferences. Family reputation required constant defense and validation, and traditional criminal values provided guidance for navigating complex contemporary challenges. His various arrests and investigations revealed the challenges facing second-generation criminal leaders who inherit both organizational advantages and law enforcement attention that makes traditional criminal careers increasingly difficult to maintain. His story demonstrates the evolution of organized crime from family-based traditional enterprises to modern business organizations that require different skills and face different challenges than previous generations of criminal leaders. He remains under constant law enforcement surveillance, having become a symbol of both criminal inheritance and the changing nature of organized crime in contemporary democratic societies. How does inheriting a legendary criminal name become both the greatest advantage and heaviest burden for modern organized crime? You're walking through Boston's South Side now, where Irish pubs echo with old songs and one man's unholy alliance with federal agents created decades of protected criminality. James Whitey Bulger controlled Boston's Winter Hill Gang for 30 years, while secretly working as an FBI informant, creating one of the most controversial relationships in American law enforcement history. His organization dominated loan sharking, drug trafficking, and extortion throughout South Boston, generating millions, while his handler protected him from the prosecution. Born into poverty in 1929, Bulger learned violence early, serving time in Alcatraz before returning to rule his neighborhood through fear and strategic alliances. His code demanded absolute loyalty to the Irish community while betraying Italian rivals to federal authorities. The FBI ignored his murders and drug dealing in exchange for information about the Italian Mafia. When his protection ended in 1995, he fled and remained hidden for 16 years. Captured in 2011, he was convicted of 11 murders and died in prison on October 30, 2018, beaten by fellow inmates. How does a criminal become so valuable that the government protects his crimes for decades? You're entering a quiet Tokyo tea house now, where traditional ceremonies mask modern criminal empires and ancient codes of honor struggle with contemporary realities. Yoshinori Watanabe led the Yamaguchi-gumi, Japan's largest yakuza organization, for nearly 2 decades, while maintaining the delicate balance between criminality and social acceptance. His syndicate controlled pachinko parlors, construction contracts, and financial services throughout Japan, generating billions while operating semi-legally under government oversight. Rising through traditional apprenticeship, Watanabe embodied Bushido principles: honor, loyalty, and ritual suicide for serious failures. The Yakuza Code included finger-cutting ceremonies for mistakes and elaborate tattoos symbolizing rank and commitment. His organization provided disaster relief after earthquakes, earning public respect despite criminal activities. Unlike Western crime families, the Yamaguchi-gumi operated offices with business cards and corporate structures. Watanabe retired in 2005 to prevent a succession war, choosing his successor carefully to maintain organizational stability. He died peacefully in 2012, having successfully modernized ancient criminal traditions for the contemporary world. How do criminal organizations maintain honor and social acceptance in modern democratic societies? You're sitting in a Brighton Beach restaurant now, where Russian voices mix with ocean breezes and post-Soviet chaos creates new opportunities for old criminal traditions. Vyacheslav Yaponchik Ivankov brought Soviet prison culture to American streets, establishing Russian organized crime in New York during the chaotic 1990s immigration wave. His organization specialized in complex fraud schemes, extortion of Russian businesses, and gasoline tax evasion that cost the government millions. Born in Georgia, he earned his nickname Little Japanese for his Asian features and spent 14 years in Soviet gulags, where he learned the thieves' code. Never cooperate with authorities, share criminal proceeds with the Brotherhood, and maintain absolute loyalty to the Vor v Zakone, thieves-in-law hierarchy. His elaborate tattoos told his criminal history in symbols, understood by fellow criminals. The FBI arrested him in 1995 for extorting millions from Russian émigré businesses in Brighton Beach. Deported to Russia in 2004, he was shot and killed in Moscow on July 28, 2009, while leaving a restaurant, ending his transition from Soviet criminal to international crime boss. He was shot and killed in Moscow on July 28, 2009, while leaving a restaurant, ending his transition from Soviet criminal to international crime boss. How do prison cultures adapt when transplanted to entirely different countries and legal systems? You're driving through 1980s Guadalajara now, where tequila flows like water, and one man's vision transforms local marijuana smuggling into a billion-dollar cocaine empire. Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo created modern Mexican drug trafficking by uniting independent smugglers into the powerful Guadalajara cartel during the cocaine boom of the 1980s. His organization controlled marijuana and opium production throughout western Mexico, while establishing crucial supply routes for Colombian cocaine entering the United States. Born into poverty, he worked as a police officer before recognizing the profits available in drug trafficking, using his law enforcement connections to build protection networks. His code emphasized business over violence. Corruption was cheaper than warfare, and steady profits required stable operations. The cartel generated billions annually while Gallardo lived modestly, reinvesting profits into expanded operations and political protection. His empire collapsed after DEA agent Enrique Camarena's 1985 murder brought intense American pressure. Arrested in 1989, he was sentenced to 40 years in prison, where he remains today. His organization's fragmentation created the modern cartel system that continues to dominate Mexican drug trafficking. How does one man's organizational genius create criminal structures that outlast his own freedom? You're walking through Tokyo's neon-lit districts now, where respectability masks the darkest human impulses, and international connections protect the most disturbing criminals. Issei Sagawa represented organized crime's strangest periphery. A wealthy Japanese student whose cannibalistic murder of a Dutch woman in Paris exposed the complex relationships between criminal organizations, political power, and international diplomacy. His father's Yakuza connections and substantial wealth enabled his return to Japan without prosecution, demonstrating how criminal influence extends into legitimate society's highest levels. Born into privilege, Sagawa studied literature in Paris while developing increasingly disturbing fantasies that culminated in the 1981 murder and consumption of his classmate René Hartevelt. French authorities declared him mentally incompetent, leading to his transfer to Japan, where political pressure secured his release. His case became a media sensation, leading to books, films, and celebrity status that horrified international observers. The Yakuza's protection networks ensured his safety despite public outrage. He lived freely until his death in 2022, representing how criminal organizations protect even their most disturbing associates when family connections and financial resources align. What happens when criminal protection extends to acts so disturbing they challenge society's fundamental values? You're walking through 1970s Mumbai now, where Bollywood dreams mix with smuggling schemes, and one man's charisma transforms criminal enterprise into cultural legend. Haji Mastan Mirza rose from Tamil Nadu poverty to control Mumbai's vast smuggling empire, becoming Bollywood's inspiration for countless gangster films while maintaining an almost mythical public presence. His organization dominated gold and electronics smuggling during India's restrictive import policies of the 1960s and 1970s, generating millions while corrupting customs officials and police throughout Western India. Born into a fishing family, he moved to Mumbai as a teenager, working as a taxi driver before recognizing the profits available in contraband goods. His code emphasized style and generosity. Expensive clothes, luxury cars, and charitable donations to Muslim communities earned him widespread respect despite criminal activities. Unlike violent contemporaries, Mastan preferred negotiation and corruption to bloodshed, maintaining peaceful relationships with rivals and authorities. His friendship with Bollywood stars made him a cultural icon, inspiring films that romanticized his life. He attempted political legitimacy in later years, contesting elections and supporting Muslim causes. He died of natural causes in 1994, having successfully transformed from criminal to cultural legend. How does a smuggler become so charismatic that an entire film industry celebrates his story? You're sitting in a Mumbai cafe now, where the Arabian Sea's breeze carries whispers of India's most wanted criminal and his global empire built on cricket, films, and terror. Dawood Ibrahim transformed local Mumbai crime into an international terrorist network, becoming India's most wanted fugitive while operating from Pakistani protection for over 3 decades. His D Company organization controls drug trafficking, money laundering, and real estate throughout South Asia while maintaining significant influence in Bollywood film financing and cricket match fixing. Born into a police constable's family, he began with small-time smuggling, before the 1993 Mumbai bomb blasts made him a terrorist rather than merely a gangster. His code combined traditional underworld loyalty with religious extremism, targeting Hindu communities while protecting Muslim interests. The organization's structure includes cells in the Middle East, Africa, and Europe, generating billions through diverse criminal enterprises. His involvement in the 2008 Mumbai attacks solidified his status as a global terrorist. Despite massive bounties and international pressure, Pakistani intelligence continues protecting him. His influence extends into legitimate businesses, sports, and entertainment, making him one of the world's most powerful criminal figures. He remains free today, operating from Karachi while maintaining his empire through technology and trusted lieutenants. How does a local gangster evolve into an international terrorist while maintaining business operations across continents? You're driving through Sicily's countryside now, where ancient olive groves hide modern secrets and tradition battles innovation in the eternal struggle for power. Leo Luca Bagarella served as Toto Riina's most trusted lieutenant, orchestrating some of Cosa Nostra's most devastating attacks while maintaining the facade of a simple farmer. His organization controlled construction contracts and drug trafficking throughout western Sicily, generating millions while enforcing discipline through spectacular violence designed to terrorize both rivals and the general public. Born into a mafia family in Corleone, he learned criminal traditions from childhood, marrying into Riena's family to cement their alliance. His code emphasized absolute loyalty to family honor and violent response to any perceived disrespect or threat. The Corleonese War of the early 1980s established their dominance over rival families through systematic elimination of competitors and their supporters. His involvement in the assassinations of judges Giovanni Falcone and Paolo Borsellino in 1992 marked the peak of Cosa Nostra's war against the Italian state. Arrested in 1995, after years in hiding, he received multiple life sentences for dozens of murders. He remains in prison today, serving as a symbol of traditional mafia ruthlessness. What drives a man to choose absolute loyalty over personal freedom, even when that loyalty demands unspeakable acts? You're walking through 1940s Sicily now, where Allied tanks roll past ancient villages, and one man's political maneuvering shapes the island's post-war destiny. Calogero Vizzini became Sicily's most powerful mafia leader by collaborating with Allied forces during World War II, transforming from regional crime boss to political kingmaker in post-war Italy. His organization controlled agricultural estates, local politics, and emerging drug trafficking networks throughout central Sicily, generating wealth while maintaining the traditional feudal structures that supported mafia power. Born into a peasant family, he rose through violence and cunning to control Villalba and surrounding territories, earning respect through calculated brutality and strategic alliances. His code emphasized honor, respect, and absolute authority over his territory. Challenges to his power resulted in swift elimination. During the Allied invasion, he provided intelligence and local support, earning American gratitude and post-war political influence. His funeral in 1954 drew thousands of mourners, including politicians, priests, and criminals who recognized his unique role in Sicilian history. His legacy shaped the Mafia's relationship with post-war Italian democracy, establishing patterns of political corruption that persist today. How does a criminal leader become so essential to military victory that occupying armies embrace his authority? You're entering 1960s Providence now, where New England's criminal empire operates from the smallest state while controlling organized crime throughout 6 states and beyond. Raymond Loreda Salvatore Patriarca ruled New England's mafia for 30 years, from his modest Providence office, proving that geographic size means nothing when strategic thinking and absolute discipline create lasting power. His organization controlled illegal gambling, loan sharking, and labor racketeering from Maine to Connecticut, generating millions while maintaining the lowest profile among America's major crime families. Born in Massachusetts to Italian immigrants, he learned criminal trades during Prohibition before consolidating scattered New England operations under unified command. His code demanded absolute respect for hierarchy and complete silence about family business. Violations meant death, but loyalty brought protection and steady income. The FBI's extensive surveillance revealed his daily operations, but rarely produced prosecutable evidence due to careful planning and disciplined subordinates. His influence extended into legitimate businesses, labor unions, and political organizations throughout the region. Convicted in 1968, he continued controlling operations from prison until his death in 1984, having created one of America's most stable criminal organizations. How does a crime boss from America's smallest state build an empire spanning 6 states while avoiding major prosecution for decades? You're watching planes take off from a Mexican airstrip now, where the desert wind carries the scent of aviation fuel, and one man's fleet transforms drug trafficking into an airborne empire. Amado Carrillo Fuentes revolutionized cocaine smuggling by creating the world's largest air transport network, earning the nickname Lord of the Skies through his fleet of Boeing 727s that moved tons of Colombian cocaine into the United States. His Juarez cartel generated over $25 billion annually during the 1990s, making him one of Mexico's wealthiest men while maintaining a surprisingly low public profile. Born into a family already involved in drug trafficking, he learned the business from his uncle before expanding operations far beyond traditional ground smuggling. His code emphasized efficiency and discretion. Violence was used strategically, not emotionally, and publicity was avoided at all costs. The organization operated like a multinational corporation, with professional pilots, mechanics, and logistics specialists managing constant flights between Colombia and Mexico. His attempt to alter his appearance through plastic surgery in 1997 resulted in his death during the procedure, ending one of the most sophisticated criminal enterprises in history. How does a drug lord build an airline more efficient than many legitimate carriers? You're walking through 1920s Chicago now, where the jazz age beats with criminal innovation, and one man's organizational genius creates the blueprint for modern organized crime. Giovanni "Johnny" Torrio transformed chaotic gang warfare into systematic criminal enterprise, becoming the mentor who taught Al Capone how to build and manage a criminal empire. His organization pioneered the territorial division of illegal activities, creating peace through negotiated boundaries rather than constant violence. Born in Italy and raised in New York, he moved to Chicago in 1909 to manage his uncle's brothel operations before recognizing Prohibition's massive profit potential. His code emphasized business principles over traditional vendetta. Cooperation generated more money than conflict, and systematic corruption was more effective than random intimidation. The Torrio Accords of 1926 divided Chicago's underworld into specific territories, reducing violence while maximizing profits for all participating organizations. An assassination attempt in 1925 convinced him to retire, selling his operations to Capone and moving to New York, where he lived quietly until his death in 1957. His organizational innovations influenced American organized crime for decades. What happens when a criminal mind applies corporate principles to traditional gang warfare? You're entering a Buffalo funeral home now, where the scent of flowers masks the presence of Western New York's most powerful crime boss and his carefully constructed legitimate facade. Stefano Magaddino controlled organized crime across the Niagara frontier for over 50 years, while operating funeral homes that provided perfect cover for his criminal activities. His organization dominated labor racketeering, illegal gambling, and narcotics trafficking throughout western New York and southern Ontario, generating millions while maintaining respectability through his mortuary business. Born in Sicily, he immigrated to Brooklyn in 1902 before moving to Buffalo, where he eliminated rivals and established territorial control through calculated violence and strategic alliances. His code combined old Sicilian traditions with American business practices. Respect for family honor, absolute silence about criminal activities, and systematic corruption of local officials. The funeral home provided convenient explanations for late-night meetings, unusual deliveries, and the disposal of evidence. His rivalry with other commission members led to the famous 1957 Appalachian meeting, where his territorial disputes exposed the National Crime Syndicate to federal investigation. He died of natural causes in 1974, having successfully balanced criminal leadership with legitimate business ownership. How does a funeral director become one of America's most powerful, organized crime leaders? You're walking through 1920s Harlem now, where jazz music floats from basement clubs and one woman's mathematical genius builds an empire from nickels and dreams. Stephanie St. Clair dominated Harlem's numbers racket during the 1920s and 1930s, becoming known as Queenie for her fierce independence and refusal to submit to Italian crime families trying to muscle into her territory. Her organization collected millions of small bets from working-class players hoping to win instant wealth through the daily numbers drawing based on stock market figures. Born in Martinique, she immigrated to New York in 1912 and quickly recognized the profit potential in illegal gambling operations that served communities ignored by legitimate businesses. Her code emphasized community loyalty and racial pride. She reinvested profits in Harlem businesses, fought police corruption, and refused to pay tribute to white crime bosses. When Dutch Schultz tried to take over her operations in the early 1930s, she waged a fierce war through newspaper advertisements, legal challenges, and strategic violence that embarrassed the established criminal hierarchy. She retired wealthy in the 1940s, having proven that intelligence and determination could overcome both racial and gender barriers in organized crime. How does an immigrant woman build and defend a criminal empire in 1920s America? You're sitting in a 1950s New Jersey restaurant now, where the clatter of dishes mingles with hushed conversations, and one man's loose tongue becomes his ultimate downfall. Guareno Willie Moretti served as Frank Costello's underboss, while controlling gambling and loan sharking operations throughout northern New Jersey, earning millions through his charming personality and extensive political connections. His organization operated with unusual openness, as Moretti's gregarious nature made him a favorite among politicians, entertainers, and journalists who frequented his nightclubs and restaurants. Born in Italy and raised in New York, he rose through the Genovese crime family by combining violence with diplomacy, preferring negotiation to bloodshed whenever possible. His code emphasized personal relationships and mutual respect. Loyalty was rewarded with protection and profit, while betrayal brought swift punishment. His friendship with Frank Sinatra and other celebrities made him a media figure, but his increasing willingness to discuss family business alarmed his superiors. When syphilis began affecting his judgment and loosening his tongue even further, the commission decided he had become a liability. On October 4th, 1951, Moretti was shot while eating breakfast at a New Jersey restaurant, killed by men he considered friends. What happens when a mobster's greatest strength becomes his most dangerous weakness? You're walking through 1920s Bronx now, where ice trucks rumble down cobblestone streets, and one man's control of a simple necessity creates unexpected criminal power. Gaetano Reina built his criminal empire around ice distribution, controlling a commodity essential to every household and business before electric refrigeration became common. His organization dominated ice delivery routes throughout the Bronx, while expanding into illegal alcohol, gambling, and labor racketeering during Prohibition's early years. Born in Sicily, he immigrated as a child and learned that controlling basic necessities provided both legitimate income and perfect cover for criminal activities. His code emphasized steady profits over spectacular crimes. Reliable ice delivery earned community respect, while hidden criminal enterprises generated substantial wealth. The ice business required extensive territorial control, giving Reina's organization natural boundaries and defensible positions against rival gangs. His refusal to align with either Joe Masseria or Salvatore Maranzano during the brewing Castellamarese War made him a target for both sides. On February 26, 1930, Reina was shot and killed while leaving his home, becoming one of the conflict's first major casualties. His death marked the beginning of the bloody war that would reshape New York's criminal landscape. How does controlling something as simple as ice delivery create the foundation for a criminal empire? You're walking along a Caribbean beach now, where crystal-clear waters meet white sand, and one man's island paradise serves as headquarters for revolutionary drug trafficking methods. Carlos Leder Rivas transformed cocaine smuggling by purchasing Norman's Cay in the Bahamas and turning it into a transshipment point that revolutionized how South American drugs reached the United States. His organization coordinated with Pablo Escobar's Medellin cartel to move tons of cocaine monthly through his private island, where armed guards and private planes operated without government interference. Born in Colombia to a German father and Colombian mother, he learned about aircraft and smuggling during time spent in American prisons, where he met American marijuana smugglers. His code combined Nazi ideology with drug profits. He admired Hitler while building relationships with revolutionary groups and corrupt officials throughout the Caribbean. The island operation featured luxury accommodations, sophisticated radar systems, and a 3,300-foot airstrip that accommodated large cargo planes loaded with cocaine. His increasing megalomania and public statements attracted unwanted attention from both American and Colombian authorities. Captured in 1987, he was extradited to the United States where he received a life sentence, later reduced for cooperation against Manuel Noriega. How does a single island transform international drug trafficking from risky smuggling to systematic transportation? You're sitting in a federal courthouse now, where the echo of testimony reverberates through marble halls, and one man's decision to break silence changes organized crime forever. Joseph Michael Valachi became the first member of the American Mafia to publicly acknowledge its existence and structure, providing testimony that exposed the National Crime Syndicate to federal investigation and public awareness. His organization within the Genovese crime family specialized in numbers running, loan sharking, and labor racketeering in East Harlem, generating steady income through traditional neighborhood rackets. Born in New York to Italian immigrants, he learned criminal trades during Prohibition before becoming a soldier, in what he revealed was called Cosa Nostra. His code demanded absolute silence about family activities, with death as the penalty for cooperation with law enforcement, a code he would ultimately violate. When boss Vito Genovese suspected him of being an informant in 1962, Valachi killed another prisoner he mistakenly believed was sent to murder him. Facing execution for the killing, he agreed to testify before Senator John McClellan's committee in 1963. His revelations about mafia structure, rituals, and operations provided the foundation for federal prosecutions that decimated organized crime families. He died in federal prison in 1971, having transformed from loyal soldier to the mob's most damaging witness. What drives a man to break the most sacred vow of his criminal brotherhood? You're driving through Sicily's mountains now, where ancient villages cling to rocky slopes, and one man's brutal rise to power embodies the Mafia's most primitive instincts. Luciano Leggio represented Cosa Nostra's most violent tendencies, controlling the Corleone family through spectacular brutality that terrorized both rivals and subordinates into absolute submission. His organization specialized in cattle rustling, land grabbing, and protection rackets throughout central Sicily, generating wealth through methods that had changed little since the 19th century. Born into poverty, he earned his reputation through dozens of murders committed with such cruelty that even hardened criminals feared him. His code was simple brutality. Respect came through terror, loyalty through fear, and disputes were settled through immediate violence. The Savage nickname came from his habit of torturing victims before killing them, methods that violated traditional Mafia codes favoring quick executions. His rivalry with other families led to the bloody Sicilian Mafia wars of the 1960s, conflicts that killed hundreds of people and attracted unwanted government attention. Arrested in 1974, he spent his remaining years in prison, dying in 1993, while serving multiple life sentences. His protege, Toto Riina, continued his violent legacy, making the Corleonesi the most feared family in Sicily. How does excessive brutality become a liability even within organizations built on violence? You're walking through Hell's Kitchen now, where Irish pubs echo with old songs, and one man's refusal to evolve with changing times leads to inevitable destruction. Michael "Mickey" Spillane controlled Manhattan's West Side waterfront for over 2 decades, representing the last generation of Irish-American organized crime before being displaced by more sophisticated criminal organizations. His gang dominated loading docks, construction sites, and neighborhood rackets throughout Hell's Kitchen, generating millions through labor racketeering and loan sharking while maintaining fierce territorial control. Born into a family already established in waterfront crime, he inherited leadership during the 1960s decline of traditional Irish gangs. His code emphasized neighborhood loyalty and ethnic pride. Irish workers were protected, outsiders were excluded, and territorial boundaries were defended through immediate violence. His organization's methods remained unchanged from the 1940s, while other crime families adapted to modern law enforcement techniques and federal investigations. The construction of Lincoln Center and urban renewal projects threatened his traditional territorial base, leading to conflicts with developers and rival criminal organizations. On May 13, 1977, Spillane was shot and killed outside a Queens bar, ending Irish-American organized crime's dominance on Manhattan's West Side. His death symbolized the transition from ethnic neighborhood gangs to more sophisticated international criminal enterprises. What happens when traditional criminal organizations refuse to adapt to changing urban landscapes? You're walking through a small Sicilian village now, where ancient church bells echo across stone streets, and one man's power shapes an entire community's destiny for half a century. Calogero Vizzini controlled central Sicily's agricultural estates and emerging drug trafficking networks from his modest Villalba home, becoming known as Don Calò to everyone from peasants to politicians who sought his blessing. His organization operated through traditional feudal relationships, with landowners paying tribute for protection while sharecroppers accepted his mediation in all disputes. Born into poverty in 1877, he rose through cunning and violence to control water rights, grain distribution, and land sales throughout the sulfur mining region. His code emphasized respect, honor, and absolute authority over his territory. Challenges to his decisions resulted in swift punishment, but loyalty brought protection and prosperity. During World War II, he aided Allied forces with local intelligence, earning American gratitude and post-war political influence. His funeral in 1954 drew thousands of mourners, including government officials who publicly honored a man they privately knew controlled Sicily's shadow government. He died peacefully in his bed having never spent a day in prison despite controlling one of Italy's most powerful criminal organizations. How does a village don become more powerful than the official government in his region? You're strolling along Atlantic City's famous boardwalk now, where ocean breezes carry the sound of slot machines, and one man's political machine transforms a seaside resort into America's vice capital. Enoch Lewis, Nucky Johnson, controlled Atlantic City's political and criminal operations for 3 decades, creating a wide-open city where gambling, prostitution, and illegal alcohol flowed freely under his protection. His organization generated millions through coordinated corruption involving police, judges, and government officials who ensured that vice operations faced no interference. Born into a political family, he inherited control of Atlantic County's Republican machine before Prohibition created unprecedented opportunities for organized corruption. His code emphasized mutual benefit. Criminals paid tribute for protection. Politicians received campaign funds for cooperation, and everyone prospered through systematic violation of federal laws. The famous Atlantic City Conference of 1929 brought together major crime bosses to divide national territories and establish cooperative relationships. His flamboyant lifestyle included expensive clothes, luxury cars, and constant public appearances that made him a celebrity in his own right. Convicted of tax evasion in 1941, he served 4 years in federal prison before dying quietly in 1968, long after his empire had crumbled. How does a political boss transform an entire city into a criminal sanctuary? You're entering a Prohibition-era speakeasy now, where jazz music flows like the illegal liquor, and one immigrant's ruthless ambition builds an empire from violence and vice. Owen Vincent "Oni" Madden brought English street fighting techniques to New York's Hell's Kitchen, controlling the Gopher Gang before evolving into one of Manhattan's most sophisticated bootleggers and nightclub owners. His organization specialized in high-quality liquor distribution and illegal gambling, generating millions while maintaining relative peace through strategic alliances rather than constant warfare. Born in Leeds, England, he immigrated to New York as a child and quickly gained notoriety for his willingness to use violence against much larger opponents. His code emphasized business over bloodshed. Steady profits required stable operations, and unnecessary violence attracted unwanted police attention. The Cotton Club became his most famous legitimate front, showcasing black entertainers to white audiences while laundering criminal proceeds through entertainment industry connections. Multiple arrests and prison terms taught him the value of discretion and political connections. Unlike most contemporaries, he successfully transitioned from street gang leader to quasi-legitimate businessman, retiring to Hot Springs, Arkansas, where he lived quietly until his death in 1965, having outlived most rivals through careful planning and strategic thinking. How does a foreign-born street fighter become more American than his American-born criminal competitors? You're walking through early 1900s East Harlem now, where Italian immigrants build new lives while old-world criminal traditions take root in American soil. Giuseppe Morello established the first organized crime family in America, bringing Sicilian Mafia methods to New York's Italian immigrant community during the early 20th century. His organization controlled counterfeiting operations, extortion rackets, and early narcotics trafficking throughout Manhattan's Little Italy, generating substantial profits while maintaining strict omerta traditions. Born in Sicily with a deformed right hand that earned him his nickname, he immigrated in 1892 and quickly recognized opportunities for traditional protection rackets among vulnerable immigrant merchants. His code followed ancient Sicilian customs, absolute silence about family activities, death for informants, and respect for hierarchical authority based on criminal reputation. The organization's counterfeiting operation produced high-quality fake currency that circulated throughout the Northeast, attracting federal attention and leading to his first major conviction. His rivalry with other Sicilian factions led to the Morello Wars of the early 1900s, conflicts that established territorial boundaries and criminal protocols still recognized decades later. He died in 1930, assassinated by rivals who had learned his organizational methods and used them to eliminate their teacher. How do Old World criminal traditions adapt when transplanted to New World opportunities and challenges? You're walking through Chicago's North Side now, where Valentine's Day holds darker memories, and one man's refusal to surrender leads to the most famous massacre in criminal history. George Clarence "Bugs" Moran led Chicago's North Side Gang in its final war against Al Capone's organization, representing the last major challenge to Capone's dominance over the city's illegal alcohol trade. His organization controlled bootlegging operations throughout Chicago's affluent North Side, generating millions through high-quality liquor distribution to upscale speakeasies and private clients. Born in Minnesota to Polish and Irish parents, he earned his nickname through erratic behavior and violent temper that made him unpredictable even to allies. His code emphasized ethnic loyalty and territorial pride. Irish and Polish gangsters deserved respect equal to their Italian counterparts, and North Side independence was worth fighting for regardless of the cost. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre of 1929 eliminated 7 of his key lieutenants, effectively ending his organization's power and leaving him a hunted man. His later years involved minor robberies and frequent arrests, a dramatic decline from his former status as one of Chicago's most powerful criminals. He died in federal prison in 1957, having outlived his era and witnessed the complete transformation of organized crime in America. What happens when ethnic pride and territorial stubbornness meet superior organization and firepower? You're sitting in a 1920s Chicago restaurant now, where the aroma of Italian cooking masks the tension between Old World traditions and New World criminal innovations. Giuseppe "Joe" Aiello challenged Al Capone's dominance over Chicago's Italian underworld by aligning with Sicilian traditionalists who opposed Capone's modern business methods and ethnic inclusiveness. His organization controlled alcohol distribution and gambling operations throughout Chicago's Italian neighborhoods, generating substantial profits while maintaining strict adherence to traditional Mafia codes. Born in Sicily and immigrated to Chicago as a young man, he brought old country customs that emphasized Sicilian superiority over other Italian regional groups. His code demanded respect for ancient traditions. Leadership belonged to pure Sicilians. Business should remain within ethnic boundaries, and American-born gangsters lacked proper criminal education. The conflict began over territorial disputes, but escalated into a war between traditional and modern criminal philosophies, with Aiello representing old ways against Capone's innovative approaches. His numerous assassination attempts against Capone failed, leading to escalating violence that attracted unwanted police attention to both organizations. On October 23, 1930, Aiello was machine-gunned to death while leaving his apartment, ending the last serious challenge to Capone's supremacy in Chicago. How do traditional criminal values survive when confronted with more effective modern criminal methods? You're entering a 1920s Manhattan gambling den now, where cards shuffle and dice roll, while one man's mathematical genius transforms criminal enterprise into high finance. Arnold Rothstein revolutionized American organized crime by applying Wall Street principles to illegal gambling, loan sharking, and political corruption, earning the nickname the Brain for his intellectual approach to criminal enterprise. His organization operated like an investment bank, providing capital for other criminals' operations while taking percentages of profits rather than controlling territories through violence. Born into a respectable Jewish family, he abandoned legitimate business for the more profitable world of illegal gambling, where his mathematical skills and understanding of human psychology created enormous advantages. His code emphasized intelligence over intimidation. Careful planning generated more profit than random violence, and systematic corruption was more effective than temporary bribes. The 1919 World Series fixing scandal, known as the Black Sox scandal, allegedly involved his financing, though he was never convicted. His willingness to lend money to criminals throughout New York made him indispensable to numerous organizations that relied on his capital for major operations. On November 4, 1928, Rothstein was shot during a poker game, dying 2 days later without revealing his killer's identity, maintaining criminal silence even in death. How does a mathematician's approach to crime create more lasting influence than traditional gangster methods? You're walking through 1940s Brooklyn now, where everyday neighborhood life conceals one of New York's most powerful crime families and its mysteriously low-profile leader. Vincent Mangano controlled the family that would later become the Gambinos, maintaining power through careful anonymity, while his organization dominated Brooklyn's waterfront operations for over 2 decades. His enterprises included labor racketeering, illegal gambling, and loan sharking throughout Brooklyn and Queens, generating millions while avoiding the publicity that destroyed other crime bosses. Born in Sicily and raised in New York, he learned that real power operated invisibly, leaving dramatic gestures and media attention to less intelligent criminals. His code emphasized discretion above all else. Successful criminals remained unknown to the general public. Violence was used sparingly and strategically, and family business stayed strictly within the organization. His brother Philip served as his underboss, creating a tight family structure that resisted penetration by law enforcement or rival organizations. The family's control of Brooklyn's docks provided enormous leverage over shipping, trade unions, and political appointments throughout the borough. His disappearance in April 1951, likely orchestrated by ambitious underboss Albert Anastasia, marked the end of old-school mafia leadership that preferred invisibility to celebrity. How does remaining completely unknown become a source of criminal power in a media-obsessed society? You're standing on a Coney Island rooftop now, where ocean winds carry the weight of betrayal, and one man's decision to break silence reshapes American criminal justice. Abraham Kid Twist Ruthless served as a key executioner for Murder, Inc., the enforcement arm of the National Crime Syndicate, before becoming the most important organized crime informant in American history. His organization carried out hundreds of contract killings for crime families throughout the country, operating with corporate efficiency from their Brooklyn headquarters. Born in Brownsville to Jewish immigrants, he learned violence early and perfected techniques that made him one of the syndicate's most reliable killers. His code initially emphasized absolute loyalty to the organization and complete silence about criminal activities. Cooperation with authorities meant death for the informant and his entire family. When arrested in 1940 for multiple murders, Ruthless chose cooperation over execution, providing detailed testimony about the National Crime Syndicate's structure and operations. His information led to numerous convictions, including several death sentences for former associates who had trusted him with their lives and secrets. On November 12, 1941, Relais fell from his sixth-floor hotel window while under police protection, an incident officially ruled accidental but widely believed to be assassination by corrupt police officers. What transforms a loyal killer into the most dangerous enemy his organization ever faced? Hey friends, if you love this series exploring the shadowy figures who shaped history, don't forget to subscribe for more fascinating stories. You're walking through pre-World War I New York now, where gas lamps flicker on cobblestone streets, and one man's death marks the end of an era in American crime. Jack Zelig controlled Manhattan's most powerful street gang during the final years before Prohibition transformed American organized crime from territorial violence to systematic business enterprise. His organization dominated protection rackets, gambling operations, and political corruption throughout the Lower East Side, generating substantial profits through methods that had changed little since the Civil War. Born into poverty on the Lower East Side, he rose through street fighting and strategic alliances to become the last of the great gang leaders who controlled a territory through personal charisma and physical courage. His code emphasized neighborhood loyalty and ethnic solidarity. Jewish criminals deserved the same respect as their Irish and Italian counterparts, and Lower East Side independence was worth defending against all outsiders. His assassination on October 5, 1912, was ordered by rivals who recognized that his organizational skills threatened their own territorial ambitions. His death symbolized the transition from chaotic gang warfare to systematic organized crime, as future criminal leaders emphasized business efficiency over territorial fighting and personal reputation. How does one man's death mark the end of an entire era in American criminal history? You're walking through New York's Bronx produce markets now, where the morning air carries the scent of fresh vegetables, and one man's control over artichokes creates an unexpected criminal empire. Ciro Terranova dominated New York's artichoke trade during the 1920s and 1930s, earning his nickname by monopolizing the distribution of this luxury vegetable throughout the city's Italian restaurants and markets. His organization controlled wholesale food distribution, illegal gambling, and protection rackets across the Bronx and Manhattan, generating millions through systematic control of legitimate businesses. Born in Sicily's Corleone province, he immigrated to New York as a child and learned that controlling basic necessities provided both steady income and perfect cover for criminal activities. His code emphasized business efficiency over dramatic violence. Steady profits required reliable relationships, and unnecessary attention from law enforcement threatened everyone's prosperity. The artichoke monopoly allowed him to dictate prices, control supply, and eliminate competitors through economic pressure rather than physical force. His influence extended into labor unions, political appointments, and legitimate businesses throughout New York's Italian community. He died peacefully in 1938, having demonstrated how mundane commodities could become the foundation for substantial criminal enterprises when properly organized and ruthlessly controlled. How does controlling something as simple as a vegetable create the foundation for organized crime power? You're sitting in a quiet Queens restaurant now, where the aroma of traditional Italian cooking masks the presence of the last old-school mafia boss to rule a New York crime family. Joseph Charles Massino led the Bonanno crime family for over 2 decades, becoming known as the Last Don for his ability to avoid a prosecution, while other bosses fell to federal investigations throughout the 1980s and 1990s. His organization controlled illegal gambling, loan sharking, and labor racketeering throughout New York. generating millions while maintaining strict traditional protocols that had protected organized crime for generations. Born in Queens to working-class parents, he rose through the family ranks by demonstrating absolute loyalty and careful planning that kept him invisible to law enforcement attention. His code emphasized secrecy above all else. Family business was never discussed outside closed circles. Electronic surveillance was avoided through careful planning, and cooperation with authorities meant immediate death. His paranoia about informants led to numerous murders of suspected cooperators, including his own brother-in-law when family loyalty conflicted with organizational security. Arrested in 2003, he shocked the criminal world by becoming a government witness himself, testifying against former associates to reduce his life sentence. He remains in federal custody today, the final symbol of traditional organized crime's collapse. What drives the last traditional mafia boss to become the very thing he spent decades fighting against? You're walking through 1930s Brooklyn now, where neighborhood barbershops hide deadly secrets, and one man's speed with weapons earns him a reputation as Murder Inc.'s most efficient killer. Frank the Dasher. Abandando served as one of Murder Inc.'s primary executioners, earning his nickname through quick movements and faster kills that made him indispensable to the National Crime Syndicate's enforcement operations. His organization carried out dozens of contract killings throughout the 1930s, operating with corporate efficiency from their Brownsville headquarters while maintaining cover through legitimate neighborhood businesses. Born in Calabria and raised in Brooklyn, he learned violence early and perfected techniques that eliminated targets quickly and quietly, avoiding the spectacular murders that attracted unwanted police attention. His code demanded absolute professionalism. Contracts were completed exactly as specified. Personal emotions never interfered with business decisions, and organizational loyalty superseded all other considerations. The barbershop he operated provided perfect cover for meetings and planning sessions, as well as convenient explanations for the presence of various criminal associates throughout each day. His efficiency made him wealthy, but his participation in the murder of a police informant led to his arrest in 1940. Convicted and sentenced to death, he was executed in 1942, maintaining silence about his organization's operations until the end. How does a neighborhood barber become one of organized crime's most feared professional killers? You're entering a 1940s Brooklyn nightclub now, where smooth music flows like silk and one man's charm and good looks mask a criminal mind that shapes New York's underworld. Giuseppe Antonio Dotto, known as Joe Adonis, controlled gambling and waterfront operations throughout Brooklyn while maintaining the public image of a successful, legitimate businessman and nightclub owner. His organization dominated illegal gambling, loan sharking, and labor racketeering across Brooklyn's waterfront, generating millions through carefully maintained relationships with union leaders, politicians, and other crime families. Born in Italy and raised in New York, he earned his nickname through exceptional good looks and natural charisma that made him popular with celebrities, politicians, and society figures who frequented his establishments. His code emphasized style and discretion. Criminal activities were conducted quietly and professionally. Public behavior was always respectable, and violence was used only when absolutely necessary for organizational protection. His friendship with celebrities like Frank Sinatra and political figures provided valuable cover and protection from law enforcement scrutiny throughout the 1940s and early 1950s. The Kefauver hearings exposed his criminal activities to national television audiences, leading to deportation proceedings that forced him to flee to Italy in 1956. He died in exile in 1971, having lost his American empire, but maintained his reputation as one of organized crime's most sophisticated figures. How does personal charisma become a more powerful criminal weapon than traditional violence and intimidation? You're strolling through 1920s Manhattan now, where well-dressed men conduct deadly business with the politeness of bank executives and lethal efficiency of professional soldiers. Umberto Valenti represented the sophisticated end of early American organized crime, controlling protection rackets and illegal gambling throughout Manhattan while maintaining the facade of a successful, legitimate businessman. His organization operated with unusual refinement, conducting criminal business through carefully orchestrated meetings and negotiations, rather than the crude violence that characterized most contemporary gangs. Born in Sicily to an educated family, he immigrated to New York with advantages that most criminals lacked: formal education, social connections, and understanding of both American business practices and traditional Sicilian criminal codes. His code emphasized intelligence and planning over brute force. Careful preparation prevented unnecessary risks. Systematic corruption was more effective than random violence, and professional behavior earned respect from both criminals and legitimate businessmen. His rivalry with Giuseppe Morello and other traditional mafia leaders represented a conflict between old-world methods and modern American criminal techniques. On August 11, 1922, Valenti was shot and killed outside his Manhattan office, ending his attempt to modernize American organized crime through business principles rather than traditional ethnic loyalties. His death demonstrated that intelligence and sophistication were insufficient protection against more primitive but effective criminal methods. What happens when criminal sophistication meets traditional mafia violence in the struggle for territorial control? You're walking through early 1900s Brooklyn now, where Italian immigrants build new lives while old-world criminal traditions take root in American neighborhoods and legitimate businesses. Francesco Ioele, known as Frankie Yale, controlled Brooklyn's early organized crime operations while operating the Harvard Inn, a legitimate nightclub that served as headquarters for illegal gambling, loan sharking, and protection rackets throughout the borough. His organization dominated Brooklyn's Italian neighborhoods during the 1910s and 1920s, generating substantial profits through systematic control of illegal activities and strategic corruption of local police and political officials. Born in Calabria and raised in Brooklyn, he learned that combining legitimate business ownership with criminal enterprise provided both steady income and protective cover from law enforcement scrutiny. His code emphasized neighborhood loyalty and ethnic solidarity. Italian immigrants deserved protection from exploitation. Criminal disputes should be resolved within the community, and cooperation with outside authorities was forbidden. His mentorship of young Al Capone during Capone's early years in Brooklyn provided the future Chicago boss with crucial training in organizational methods and business principles. Yale's assassination on July 1, 1928, likely ordered by his former protege Capone during a business dispute, marked the end of Brooklyn's independence from Chicago's expanding criminal empire. His death demonstrated how personal relationships in organized crime could become deadly liabilities when business interests conflicted with old loyalties. How does a mentor's success create the very rivalry that leads to his destruction? You're entering a 1980s Staten Island mansion now, where luxury surrounds a crime boss who preferred boardrooms to back alleys and treated organized crime like a Fortune 500 corporation. Constantino Paul Castellano transformed the Gambino crime family into a modern business enterprise, controlling construction, trucking, and legitimate businesses throughout New York, while maintaining minimal involvement in traditional street crimes. His organization generated hundreds of millions annually through labor racketeering, bid rigging, and systematic corruption of union officials, politicians, and business leaders across multiple industries. Born into organized crime royalty as Carlo Gambino's cousin, he inherited leadership through family connections rather than street credentials, bringing corporate management principles to traditional criminal enterprises. His code emphasized profits over violence. Systematic corruption generated more money than territorial wars. Legitimate business fronts provided better protection than traditional criminal methods, and educated planning was superior to instinctive reactions. His mansion on Staten Island's Todt Hill became known as the White House for its role as headquarters of what federal investigators called the most powerful crime family in America. His increasing distance from traditional mafia values alienated younger, more violent members who resented his corporate approach and preference for business meetings over neighborhood loyalty. On December 16, 1985, Castellano was shot and killed outside Sparks Steakhouse in Manhattan, assassinated by his own underboss John Gotti, who represented traditional criminal values against modern business methods. What happens when corporate efficiency meets traditional criminal culture in the struggle for organizational control? You're walking through 1950s Brooklyn now, where the scent of olive oil mingles with the aroma of fresh bread, and one man's legitimate business empire conceals vast criminal operations. Giuseppe Profaci built one of New York's most stable crime families, while operating the largest olive oil importing business in the United States, demonstrating how legitimate commerce could provide perfect cover for extensive criminal enterprises. His organization controlled illegal gambling, loan sharking, and protection rackets throughout Brooklyn and Long Island, generating millions through careful coordination of legal and illegal activities that made detection nearly impossible. Born in Sicily to a family already involved in olive oil production, he immigrated to New York in 1921 and quickly recognized how importing food products could facilitate other, more profitable smuggling operations. His code emphasized family loyalty and traditional Sicilian values. Blood relationships determined organizational hierarchy. Ancient customs guided business decisions, and respect for tradition superseded modern criminal innovations. His legitimate business success made him wealthy enough to avoid the desperate measures that brought other crime bosses to law enforcement attention, allowing him to operate with minimal interference for over 3 decades. The Profaci family remained remarkably stable compared to other New York crime families, with fewer internal conflicts and federal prosecutions than their contemporaries. He died of cancer in 1962, having successfully balanced legitimate business success with criminal enterprise leadership throughout his entire American career. How does legitimate business success provide the perfect foundation for criminal enterprise expansion? You're sitting in a 1960s Bronx social club now, where old men play cards and discuss neighborhood affairs, while one of New York's most successful crime bosses operates in plain sight. Gaetano Tommy Lucchese controlled one of New York's 5 families for over 3 decades, while maintaining such a low profile that most law enforcement agencies barely knew his name until federal investigations exposed his vast criminal empire. His organization dominated labor racketeering, illegal gambling, and legitimate businesses throughout the Bronx and Manhattan, generating enormous profits through systematic corruption and careful planning that avoided dramatic crimes attracting media attention. Born in Sicily and raised in New York, he lost 3 fingers in an industrial accident that gave him his nickname, while teaching him the value of legitimate employment as cover for criminal activities. His code emphasized invisibility and patience. Real power operated behind the scenes. Steady profits were superior to spectacular scores, and violence was used only when absolutely necessary for organizational protection. His friendship with politicians, judges, and business leaders provided protection and opportunities that more violent crime bosses could never achieve through intimidation alone. Unlike contemporaries who courted publicity or fought territorial wars, Lucchese built relationships and accumulated wealth through careful planning and strategic thinking. He died of natural causes in 1967, having never served significant prison time despite controlling one of America's most powerful criminal organizations for over 30 years. How does complete anonymity become the ultimate source of criminal power in a publicity-obsessed society? You're entering a 1950s Manhattan barbershop now, where the scent of bay rum and shaving cream mingles with the tension of a place where even crime bosses are never truly safe. Umberto Anastasio, known as Albert Anastasia, controlled Murder Inc. and its enforcement operations while building his own criminal empire through waterfront labor racketeering and illegal gambling throughout New York and New Jersey. His organization carried out hundreds of contract killings for the National Crime Syndicate while maintaining control of Brooklyn's docks, generating millions through systematic corruption of union officials, shipping companies, and government inspectors. Born in Calabria and raised in Brooklyn, he earned his nickname the Mad Hatter through his unpredictable, violent temper and willingness to kill anyone who challenged his authority or threatened his operations. His code was simple brutality combined with absolute loyalty. Respect came through fear. Organizational discipline was maintained through spectacular examples, and betrayal meant immediate death for entire families. His control of Brooklyn's waterfront made him indispensable to other crime families who needed his cooperation for smuggling operations and labor peace during the 1940s and 1950s. His increasing ambition and violent methods eventually alarmed other crime bosses who feared his unpredictability, threatened their own operations and safety. On October 25, 1957, Anastasia was shot and killed while getting a haircut at the Park Sheraton Hotel barbershop, ending the career of one of organized crime's most feared enforcers. What happens when a crime boss becomes so violent that even his criminal allies consider him too dangerous to live? You're walking through Mexico's Sierra Madre Mountains now, where pine-scented air carries whispers of the world's most famous drug lord and his legendary escapes from maximum security prisons. Joaquin Archivaldo Guzman Loera rose from poverty in rural Sinaloa to control the world's most powerful drug trafficking organization, earning the nickname El Chapo, Shorty, for his 5'6" stature that belied his enormous criminal influence. His Sinaloa cartel dominated cocaine, heroin, and fentanyl trafficking from Mexico to the United States, generating billions annually through sophisticated smuggling networks that included tunnels, submarines, and corrupt officials. Born into a family already involved in opium cultivation, he learned the drug trade from childhood before expanding operations far beyond traditional marijuana and heroin into cocaine partnerships with Colombian cartels. His code emphasized loyalty through fear and rewards. Cooperation brought wealth and protection. Betrayal meant death for entire families, including women and children. His 3 escapes from Mexican prisons, including a mile-long tunnel in 2015, made him a folk hero to some, and demonstrated the extent of his organization's resources and political corruption. Extradited to the United States in 2017, he was convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment, where he remains in solitary confinement in Colorado. How does a farmer's son become powerful enough to challenge entire governments and escape from their most secure prisons? You're driving through Sicily's Corleone countryside now, where olive groves hide the birthplace of the most brutal mafia boss in Italian history, and his war against the state itself. Salvatore Riina transformed Cosa Nostra from a regional criminal organization into a terrorist network that challenged the Italian government through spectacular assassinations and bombings throughout the 1980s and early 1990s. His Corleonese family controlled drug trafficking, construction contracts, and political corruption throughout western Sicily, generating enormous wealth while maintaining discipline through unprecedented violence that shocked even hardened criminals. Born into poverty in Corleone, he learned violence early and eliminated rivals with such brutality that his own allies eventually feared him more than their enemies. His code was absolute terror. Complete obedience or death with no exceptions for friendship, family, or tradition. The Second Mafia War of the early 1980s saw his organization eliminate hundreds of rivals, including entire families and their supporters. His assassination campaign against anti-mafia judges Giovanni Falcone and Paolo Borsellino in 1992 marked the peak of Cosa Nostra's war against the Italian state, using massive car bombs that killed not only the judges but their security details and innocent bystanders. Arrested in 1993 after 23 years in hiding, he received multiple life sentences for over 150 murders. He died in prison on November 17, 2017, having spent his final decades in solitary confinement. What transforms a criminal organization from profit-seeking enterprise into a terrorist network willing to war against the state itself? You're walking through 1980s New York construction sites now, where the sound of hammers and concrete mixers masks one of the most violent crime bosses in American mafia history. Anthony Gaspipe Casso controlled the Lucchese crime family's most profitable operations, while earning his nickname through his weapon of choice during his early years as an enforcer. His organization dominated construction racketeering, drug trafficking, and illegal gambling throughout New York, generating hundreds of millions through systematic corruption of labor unions, construction companies, and government officials. Born in Brooklyn to Italian-American parents, he rose through the family ranks by demonstrating exceptional violence and business acumen that made him indispensable to organizational leadership. His code emphasized paranoid suspicion, trust no one completely, eliminate threats immediately, and use violence as both business tool and personal expression. The Windows case, that brought down much of New York's construction industry, revealed his organization's control over building contracts, union locals, and concrete companies throughout the metropolitan area. His relationship with corrupt FBI agents provided him with inside information about federal investigations, while allowing him to eliminate rivals and potential witnesses through law enforcement resources. Arrested in 1993, he initially cooperated with federal prosecutors before his agreement was terminated due to continued criminal activity from prison. He died in federal custody in 2020, having spent his final decades in solitary confinement. How does a construction racketeer become so violent that even the mafia considers him uncontrollably dangerous? You're sitting in a quiet Arizona desert home now, where saguaro cacti stand sentinel over the retirement of one of the last old-world mafia dons who lived to tell his story. Giuseppe Bonanno represented the transition from Sicilian mafia traditions to American organized crime. Controlling one of New York's 5 families for over 3 decades, while maintaining old-world codes of honor and respect. His organization specialized in illegal gambling, loan sharking, and legitimate businesses that provided cover for extensive criminal operations throughout New York and the Southwest. Born in Sicily to a family already involved in Mafia activities, he immigrated to New York as a teenager and quickly established himself as a leader among young Italian-American criminals during Prohibition. His code emphasized family honor and Sicilian tradition, respect for elders, protection of family members, and maintenance of ancient customs that connected American operations to their Mediterranean origins. The Banana Wars of the 1960s erupted when younger family members challenged his traditional leadership style and refused to accept his chosen successor. His autobiography, published in 1983, provided unprecedented insight into Mafia operations and traditional codes, though law enforcement questioned the accuracy of his romanticized version of organized crime history. He died peacefully in 2002 at age 97. Having outlived virtually all contemporaries and witnessed the complete transformation of American organized crime from ethnic neighborhood gangs to international criminal enterprises. How does a traditional mafia don adapt to changing times while maintaining ancient codes of honor and respect? You're entering a 1970s Brooklyn social club now, where old men play cards and discuss neighborhood affairs while one of New York's most cunning crime bosses operates in plain sight. Carmine John Persico Jr. controlled the Colombo crime family for over 4 decades, despite spending most of that time in federal prison, earning his nickname the Snake through his ability to maintain power and eliminate rivals from behind bars. His organization dominated illegal gambling, loan sharking, and labor racketeering throughout Brooklyn and Long Island, generating millions through systematic corruption and careful planning that avoided the spectacular crimes attracting federal attention. Born in Brooklyn to Italian-American parents, he learned criminal trades during the 1950s and demonstrated exceptional cunning in navigating both internal family politics and external law enforcement pressure. His code emphasized survival through intelligence. Careful planning prevented unnecessary risks, loyal subordinates maintained operations during his imprisonments, and strategic violence eliminated threats without attracting unwanted attention. His conviction in the Commission case of 1986 resulted in a 100-year sentence that effectively ended his direct control, though he continued influencing family operations through intermediaries and family visits. His legal battles continued for decades, with appeals and attempts to reduce his sentence providing him with purpose and hope during long periods of incarceration. He died in federal prison in 2019 at age 85, having maintained his position as family boss despite spending over 30 years behind bars. How does a crime boss maintain control of a criminal organization while serving a virtual life sentence in federal prison? You're walking through 1980s Atlantic City now, where casino lights reflect off ocean waves, and one man's violent reign transforms Philadelphia's crime family into a regional terror organization. Nicodemo Domenico Scarfo controlled the Philadelphia crime family during its most violent period, earning his nickname Little Nicky for his 5'5" stature that contrasted sharply with his enormous capacity for brutality and revenge. His organization dominated illegal gambling, loan sharking, and labor racketeering throughout Philadelphia and southern New Jersey, generating millions while maintaining discipline through spectacular examples of violence that terrified both criminals and civilians. Born in Brooklyn but raised in Philadelphia, he rose through the family ranks by demonstrating absolute ruthlessness and willingness to eliminate anyone who challenged his authority or threatened his operations. His code was simple paranoia. Everyone was a potential enemy. Betrayal was punishable by death, and respect came only through fear of immediate and violent retaliation. His move to Atlantic City during the casino development boom of the late 1970s provided new opportunities for skimming, labor racketeering, and political corruption in the rapidly expanding gambling industry. His increasing violence and unpredictable behavior eventually alienated family members who feared his methods would destroy the organization. Convicted in 1988 of multiple murders and racketeering charges, he received a 55-year sentence. He died in federal prison in 2017, having spent his final decades in solitary confinement. What happens when a crime boss becomes so violent that his own organization fears him more than their enemies? You're sitting in a 1990s Philadelphia restaurant now, where the aroma of traditional Italian cooking masks the presence of an old-world mafia boss trying to rebuild a shattered crime family. Giovanni John Stanfa attempted to restore traditional Sicilian mafia values to Philadelphia's crime family after the violent reign of Nicodemo Scarfo had decimated the organization through internal warfare and federal prosecutions. His organization struggled to rebuild illegal gambling, loan sharking, and labor racketeering operations, while facing challenges from younger, more violent rivals who rejected his old-world leadership style. Born in Sicily and immigrated to Philadelphia as a young man, he brought traditional mafia codes and customs that emphasized respect for hierarchy, family honor, and methodical business practices over random violence. His code followed ancient Sicilian traditions: leadership through respect rather than fear, careful planning over impulsive actions, and family loyalty superseding all other considerations. His war with rival faction, led by Skinny Joey Merlino, represented a generational conflict between traditional mafia values and modern American criminal methods that emphasized quick profits and spectacular violence. The conflict attracted intense federal attention, leading to extensive surveillance and prosecutions that further weakened the already damaged organization. Convicted in 1995 of racketeering and murder charges, he received a life sentence and died in federal prison in 2022, having failed to restore the traditional values he believed would save Philadelphia's crime family. How do traditional criminal values survive when transplanted to a culture that has moved beyond their original context? You're walking through 1960s Boston now, where Irish pubs echo with old songs, and one man's loyalty to his neighborhood crew leads to decades of warfare with Italian crime families. James Buddy McLean controlled Somerville's Winter Hill Gang during its violent conflict with Boston's Italian-American crime families, representing Irish-American organized crime's struggle for territorial independence and ethnic respect. His organization dominated illegal gambling, loan sharking, and labor racketeering throughout Greater Boston's working-class neighborhoods, generating substantial profits while maintaining fierce independence from Italian mafia control. Born into a family already established in Boston's Irish criminal community, he inherited leadership during the 1960s when ethnic tensions and territorial disputes created opportunities for violent confrontation. His code emphasized neighborhood loyalty and ethnic pride. Irish criminals deserved the same respect as their Italian counterparts. Territorial boundaries should be defended through immediate violence, and cooperation with outside organizations was acceptable only from positions of strength. The gang war that erupted in the early 1960s lasted over a decade and killed dozens of people, becoming known as the Irish Gang War for its ethnic dimensions and spectacular violence. His assassination on October 30th, 1965, escalated the conflict, and demonstrated the costs of ethnic pride in organized crime when territorial ambitions conflicted with superior firepower. His death marked the beginning of Winter Hill's eventual cooperation with Italian crime families and federal law enforcement agencies. What happens when ethnic pride and territorial independence meet superior organization and firepower in criminal warfare? You're driving through 1980s Oakland now, where the sound of distant music mingles with the weight of urban decay, and one man's drug empire transforms a California city. Felix Wayne Mitchell controlled Oakland's crack cocaine trade during the 1980s, building a criminal empire that generated millions while devastating the African American community through addiction and violence. His organization operated with military-style discipline, controlling street corners, distribution networks, and protection rackets throughout East Oakland's housing projects and working-class neighborhoods. Born into poverty in rural Louisiana, he moved to Oakland as a teenager and quickly recognized the profit potential in emerging drug markets that traditional organized crime had ignored. His code emphasized territorial control and family loyalty. Blood relatives held top positions. Territorial boundaries were defended through immediate violence, and cooperation with law enforcement meant death for informants and their families. His empire generated enormous wealth that he used to purchase luxury cars, jewelry, and real estate, while providing employment and protection for hundreds of young men who had few legitimate economic opportunities. His public funeral in 1986, attended by thousands of mourners, demonstrated his complex role as both community destroyer and economic provider in neighborhoods abandoned by legitimate institutions. He was shot and killed in federal prison on August 21, 1986. Likely by inmates connected to rivals who had been waiting for an opportunity to eliminate him. How does a drug dealer become so powerful that his funeral draws thousands of mourners from the community his product destroyed? You're entering a 1970s Queens cab stand now, where the sound of dispatchers and taxi radios masks one of New York's most successful mid-level crime bosses and his crew of career criminals. Paul Vario controlled a Lucchese crime family crew that specialized in hijacking, loan sharking, and illegal gambling throughout Queens and Long Island. Operating from his legitimate cab stand business that provided perfect cover for extensive criminal operations. His organization included some of the most successful criminals in New York history, including future informant Henry Hill, whose testimony would eventually expose their operations to federal prosecution. Born in New York to Italian-American parents, he learned criminal trades during the 1940s and built a crew that emphasized steady profits over spectacular crimes that attracted unwanted law enforcement attention. His code was simple efficiency, reliable income through systematic crime, family loyalty above all other considerations, and violence only when absolutely necessary for organizational protection or discipline. His crew's involvement in the Lufthansa heist of 1978, which netted over $5 million in cash and jewelry, demonstrated both their criminal sophistication and ultimate downfall when the spectacular score attracted federal attention. Hill's cooperation with federal prosecutors in the early 1980s provided detailed testimony about the crew's operations and Vario's leadership methods. He died in federal prison in 1988, having spent his final years watching former associates testify against each other in highly publicized trials. How does a successful mid-level crime boss build a crew so efficient that their greatest success becomes their ultimate destruction? You're walking through Mexico's mountain strongholds now, where cartel flags flutter in highland winds and one man's empire spans from Pacific beaches to American cities thousands of miles away. Arturo Beltran Leiva controlled one of Mexico's most powerful drug trafficking organizations during the height of the cartel wars, earning the title Jefe de Jefes, boss of bosses, through his ability to coordinate operations across multiple criminal enterprises. His organization dominated cocaine and heroin trafficking from South America to the United States, generating billions annually while maintaining extensive corruption networks throughout Mexican government and law enforcement. Born into a family already involved in drug trafficking in Sinaloa, he learned the business from childhood before expanding operations far beyond traditional smuggling routes into kidnapping, extortion, and political assassination. His code emphasized family loyalty and territorial control. Blood relatives held key positions. Betrayal meant death for entire families. And territorial boundaries were defended through spectacular violence designed to terrorize rivals and civilians alike. His organization's use of military-style weapons and tactics transformed Mexican drug trafficking from business enterprise into actual warfare against government forces. His death in a shootout with Mexican Marines on December 16, 2009, marked the end of one of the most powerful criminal organizations in Mexican history, though his methods influenced cartel operations for years afterward. How does a drug trafficking organization become so powerful that it wages actual war against national military forces? You're sitting in a quiet Sicilian medical clinic now, where the scent of antiseptic mingles with whispers of power, and one man combines healing and killing in the same gentle hands. Michele Navarra served as both a respected physician and powerful mafia boss in Corleone, Sicily, demonstrating how legitimate professional standing could provide perfect cover for extensive criminal operations. His organization controlled agricultural estates, political appointments, and emerging drug trafficking networks throughout central Sicily, generating substantial wealth while maintaining the facade of community service and medical dedication. Born into a middle-class family, he earned his medical degree and built a successful practice that made him indispensable to local communities while providing cover for his role as Cosa Nostra leader. His code emphasized respectability and strategic patience. Legitimate professional success earned community trust, careful planning avoided unnecessary risks, and violence was used sparingly and strategically to maintain organizational discipline. His control over local politics and law enforcement made him virtually untouchable, until younger, more violent members like Luciano Leggio began challenging his traditional methods. The generational conflict between Old World discretion and New World brutality led to his assassination on August 2nd, 1958, when Leggio's faction machine-gunned his car on a country road. His death marked the end of the gentleman mafia era and the beginning of a spectacular violence that would characterize Cosa Nostra for decades. How does a healing profession become the perfect cover for one of Sicily's most powerful criminal organizations? You're entering a 1970s New York restaurant now, where the aroma of garlic and wine masks the presence of one of organized crime's most famous informants and his crew of career criminals. Henry Hill lived the quintessential American mafia lifestyle before becoming the most famous organized crime informant in history, providing the basis for Martin Scorsese's film Goodfellas and exposing the day-to-day operations of a Lucchese crime family crew. His organization specialized in hijacking, loan sharking, and drug trafficking throughout New York, generating millions through systematic theft and violence while maintaining the appearance of legitimate business operations. Born to an Irish father and Sicilian mother, he was attracted to the neighborhood's Italian-American criminals from childhood, learning that crime offered more excitement and money than legitimate employment. His code initially emphasized loyalty to the crew and silence about criminal activities. Cooperation with law enforcement meant death, family members came first, and steady profits were shared according to established hierarchies. His involvement in the Lufthansa heist of 1978, which netted over $5 million, demonstrated both the crew's criminal sophistication and ultimate downfall when the spectacular score attracted federal attention. His decision to cooperate with federal prosecutors in 1980 provided detailed testimony that led to numerous convictions and revolutionized law enforcement understanding of organized crime operations. He died in 2012, while living under federal protection, having spent over 3 decades hiding from former associates who never forgot his betrayal. What transforms a loyal street criminal into organized crime's most damaging informant and cultural icon? You're driving through Sicily's agricultural heartland now, where ancient olive groves hide modern drug laboratories, and one man's control over farming equipment masks a global heroin empire. Gaetano Badalamenti controlled Sicily's Sinisi family, while building one of the most sophisticated international drug trafficking networks in Mafia history, earning his nickname through legitimate business ownership of heavy farming equipment. His organization dominated heroin production and smuggling from Sicily to New York during the 1970s and early 1980s, generating hundreds of millions through the infamous pizza connection that used pizzerias as fronts for drug distribution. Born into a family already established in local mafia activities, he combined traditional Sicilian criminal methods with modern business techniques that made his organization nearly invisible to law enforcement scrutiny. His code emphasized discretion and international cooperation. Publicity attracted unwanted attention. Partnerships with American families generated enormous profits, and systematic corruption was more effective than random violence. The Pizza Connection trial of the mid-1980s exposed his role in importing tons of heroin into the United States through a network of Sicilian and American criminals operating pizzerias throughout the Northeast. Convicted in 1987, he received a 45-year sentence and died in federal prison in 2004, having witnessed the complete transformation of traditional mafia operations into international criminal enterprises. His legacy demonstrated how local Sicilian families could build global criminal networks through careful planning and strategic alliances. How does a small-town Sicilian mafia boss build one of history's most sophisticated international drug trafficking networks? You're walking through 1970s Harlem now, where soul music drifts from apartment windows and one man's flamboyant lifestyle makes him the face of New York's heroin trade. Leroy Nicky Barnes controlled Harlem's heroin distribution during the 1970s, becoming known as Mr. Untouchable for his ability to avoid prosecution while flaunting his wealth through expensive cars, jewelry, and celebrity lifestyle. His organization dominated drug trafficking throughout Manhattan's African-American neighborhoods, generating millions through systematic distribution networks that supplied hundreds of street dealers. Born into poverty in Harlem, he learned the drug trade during the 1960s and built an empire that challenged traditional Italian-American organized crime families for control of lucrative territory. His code emphasized business efficiency and personal loyalty. Reliable product quality maintained customer satisfaction. Territorial boundaries were defended through immediate violence, and cooperation with law enforcement meant death for informants and their families. His appearance on the cover of the New York Times Magazine in 1977, with the headline, Mr. Untouchable, made him a celebrity, but also attracted intense federal attention, that had previously focused primarily on Italian-American crime families. His conviction in 1978 resulted in a life sentence, but his decision to cooperate with federal prosecutors in the 1980s led to numerous convictions and a reduced sentence. He was released from prison in 1998 and died in 2012 while living under federal protection, having transformed from Harlem drug lord to government witness. How does seeking celebrity status become a drug lord's greatest strength and ultimate weakness? You're walking through New Orleans' French Quarter now, where jazz music mingles with the scent of coffee, and one man's political connections transform a regional crime family into a national power. Carlos Marcello controlled organized crime throughout Louisiana and the Gulf Coast for over 4 decades, earning his nickname the Little Man for his 5'2" stature that contrasted with his enormous political influence and criminal power. His organization dominated illegal gambling, labor racketeering, and political corruption throughout the region, generating millions through systematic control of legitimate businesses and government contracts. Born in Tunisia to Sicilian parents, he immigrated to New Orleans as an infant and built his empire through careful cultivation of political relationships and strategic corruption of law enforcement officials. His code emphasized political protection and regional autonomy. Steady bribes ensured government cooperation. Territorial independence was worth defending against outside interference, and family loyalty superseded all other considerations. His deportation to Guatemala in 1961 by the Kennedy administration created a bitter personal conflict that led to conspiracy theories linking him to President Kennedy's assassination, though no conclusive evidence ever emerged. His conviction in 1981 for bribery and conspiracy marked the end of his reign, though he continued influencing Louisiana politics through associates and family members. He died in 1993 while serving his federal sentence, having demonstrated how regional crime bosses could wield national political influence through careful planning and strategic corruption. How does a regional crime boss become powerful enough to influence national politics and presidential policies? You're walking through 1920s Hamilton, Ontario now, where Great Lakes shipping routes provide perfect smuggling opportunities, and one man's bootlegging empire spans 2 nations. Rocco Perry dominated bootlegging operations throughout Ontario during Prohibition, earning the nickname Canada's Al Capone for his ability to control liquor smuggling across the Great Lakes while maintaining extensive political protection. His organization generated millions through systematic alcohol production and smuggling, supplying American speakeasies and criminal organizations with high-quality Canadian whiskey and imported European liquors. Born in Italy and immigrated to Canada as a young man, he recognized that Canada's legal alcohol production during American Prohibition created unprecedented opportunities for cross-border smuggling operations. His code emphasized business efficiency and political corruption. Steady bribes ensured government cooperation, quality products maintained customer loyalty, and territorial disputes were resolved through negotiation rather than violence whenever possible. His partnership with American crime families provided access to lucrative markets, while his Canadian base offered protection from American law enforcement pressure that destroyed many contemporaries. His mysterious disappearance in 1944, likely due to a combination of advancing age, changing criminal opportunities, and pressure from both law enforcement and rival organizations, marked the end of one of Canada's most successful criminal enterprises. His legacy demonstrated how international borders could become assets rather than obstacles for sophisticated criminal organizations willing to cultivate relationships across multiple jurisdictions. How does an immigrant bootlegger become powerful enough to control international smuggling operations across 2 countries? You're driving through Sicily's Madoni Mountains now, where ancient villages perch on rocky slopes, and one man's role in history's most spectacular mafia assassinations echoes through stone streets. Giovanni Brusca served as Cosa Nostra's most feared executioner during the organization's war against the Italian state, earning infamy for his role in the 1992 assassinations of anti-mafia judges Giovanni Falcone and Paolo Borsellino. His organization specialized in bombings, assassinations, and kidnappings throughout Sicily, generating wealth through systematic extortion and drug trafficking while maintaining discipline through unprecedented violence that shocked even hardened criminals. Born into a mafia family in San Giuseppe Giotto, he learned violence from childhood and perfected techniques that made him indispensable to Toto Riena's campaign of terror against government officials and rival organizations. His code was absolute obedience to organizational hierarchy. Orders were followed without question. Personal feelings never interfered with business decisions, and spectacular violence was necessary to maintain respect and fear. The Capaci bombing that killed Judge Falcone required 500 kilograms of explosives detonated by remote control, demonstrating both his technical skills and complete lack of concern for innocent victims. His arrest in 1996 and subsequent cooperation with authorities provided crucial testimony about Cosa Nostra's operations and leadership structure. He was released from prison in 2021 after serving 25 years, having transformed from feared executioner to protected witness whose testimony helped convict dozens of former associates. How does a man become so efficient at violence that even his own criminal organization eventually fears his capabilities? You're entering modern New York's ethnic neighborhoods now, where new immigrant communities create fresh opportunities for traditional criminal enterprises adapted to contemporary realities. Alex Rudaj controlled the Rudaj Organization, one of New York's most powerful Albanian-American crime families, demonstrating how newer immigrant groups could challenge established Italian-American mafia dominance through superior organization and ruthless violence. His enterprise dominated illegal gambling, loan sharking, and extortion throughout the Bronx and Westchester County, generating millions through systematic control of ethnic businesses and territorial expansion into traditionally Italian-controlled areas. Born in Albania and immigrated to New York during the 1980s, he built his organization through careful recruitment of fellow Albanian immigrants who shared cultural bonds and criminal ambitions that transcended traditional ethnic boundaries. His code emphasized ethnic loyalty and territorial expansion. Albanian criminals deserved respect equal to established crime families. Territorial boundaries were negotiable through superior firepower, and cooperation with law enforcement was forbidden under any circumstances. His organization's conflict with established Gambino family operations led to a violent war during the late 1990s that demonstrated Albanian criminals' willingness to challenge traditional mafia authority through superior organization and modern weapons. His conviction in 2006 for racketeering and extortion resulted in a lengthy federal sentence that effectively ended Albanian organized crime's challenge to Italian-American dominance in New York. He remains in federal prison today, having demonstrated how immigrant criminal traditions adapt to American opportunities while challenging established criminal hierarchies. How do newer immigrant criminal organizations challenge established crime families for territorial control and ethnic respect? You're walking through post-war Sicily now, where mountain villages echo with stories of rebellion and one man's transformation from bandit to folk hero captures an island's dreams of independence. Salvatore Giuliano controlled western Sicily through a combination of banditry, separatist politics, and mafia connections during the chaotic years following World War II, becoming a folk hero to some and a terrorist to others. His organization operated through traditional mountain banditry adapted to modern political circumstances, generating wealth through kidnapping, extortion, and political assassination while maintaining popular support among peasants who saw him as a champion against government oppression. Born into a peasant family in Montelepre, he became an outlaw in 1943 after killing a police officer during a confrontation over black market grain, beginning a career that lasted until his death in 1950. His code combined traditional bandit honor with political rebellion. The poor deserved protection from government exploitation. Sicilian independence was worth fighting for, and personal honor was more important than life itself. His involvement in the Portella della Ginestra massacre of 1947, where his band killed 11 people and wounded 65 during a May Day celebration, transformed him from romantic outlaw to political terrorist in public perception. His assassination on July 5, 1950, likely orchestrated by former Mafia allies who feared his unpredictability and political ambitions, ended his brief but spectacular career. His legend continues to inspire books, films, and political movements that romanticize his rebellion against state authority, while ignoring his violent methods and criminal activities. How does a mountain bandit become a political symbol whose legend outlasts his violent reality by decades? You're walking through 1970s Naples now, where ancient streets wind past modern housing projects, and one man's criminal philosophy transforms prison into a university of organized crime. Raffaele Cutolo founded the Nuova Camorra Organizzata while serving a life sentence for murder, earning the nickname The Professor for his intellectual approach to criminal organization and his ability to recruit followers through charismatic leadership and strategic thinking. His organization controlled drug trafficking, extortion, and political corruption throughout Campania, generating hundreds of millions while operating from maximum security prisons where Cutolo spent most of his adult life. Born into poverty in rural Campania, he learned that education and strategic thinking could overcome physical disadvantages and social circumstances that limited most criminals to street-level activities. His code emphasized intellectual superiority and organizational loyalty. Careful planning was superior to random violence. Education created lasting power, and absolute devotion to the organization superseded all personal considerations, including family relationships. His recruitment of young prisoners created a criminal army that continued operating under his distant control, even when he was held in solitary confinement for decades. His death in prison in 2021 ended one of the most unusual criminal careers in Italian history, having demonstrated how intellectual leadership could build powerful organizations without direct physical presence or traditional territorial control. How does a man build a criminal empire from inside a prison cell, using only ideas and charismatic leadership? You're entering a small Italian mountain village now, where church bells echo across stone streets, and one man's invisible leadership controls vast criminal enterprises without ever raising his voice. Bernardo Vialli controlled one of northern Italy's most successful 'ndrangheta families, while maintaining such complete anonymity that law enforcement barely knew his name until major investigations exposed his vast criminal empire. His organization dominated cocaine trafficking from South America to Europe, generating billions through sophisticated smuggling networks that operated with corporate efficiency and minimal violence. Born into a traditional 'Ndrangheta family in Calabria, he learned that real power operated invisibly, avoiding the publicity and spectacular crimes that brought other crime bosses to government attention. His code emphasized absolute discretion and family loyalty. Successful criminals remained completely unknown to the general public. Business was conducted through intermediaries and coded communications, and family honor superseded all other considerations, including personal safety and freedom. His organization's control of European cocaine markets made him one of the wealthiest criminals in history, though his name never appeared in newspapers or popular culture. His arrest in 2019 surprised even veteran investigators who had been tracking 'Ndrangheta operations for decades without realizing his central role. He remains in maximum security prison today, having successfully operated one of the world's largest criminal enterprises while remaining virtually invisible to both law enforcement and public awareness. How does complete invisibility become the ultimate source of criminal power in a media-saturated world? You're sitting in a 1970s Manhattan restaurant now, where the clatter of dishes masks quiet conversations, and one man's official leadership conceals the real power operating behind organizational facades. Frank Thierry served as the official boss of the Genovese crime family, while the real power remained with retired boss Frank Costello and other behind-the-scenes leaders, demonstrating how modern organized crime adapted to federal pressure through complex leadership structures. His organization controlled labor racketeering, illegal gambling, and loan sharking throughout New York, generating millions while maintaining the facade that Thierry made all important decisions and bore responsibility for family operations. Born in Italy and raised in New York, he learned that visible leadership in modern organized crime meant accepting inevitable prosecution while protecting the real decision-makers who remained safely in the background. His code emphasized organizational loyalty over personal ambition. Protecting the family's real leaders was more important than personal freedom. Visible authority was less valuable than actual power, and maintaining organizational structure justified personal sacrifice. His conviction in 1980 as part of the Commission case resulted in a lengthy federal sentence that he accepted without cooperating with authorities or revealing the family's actual power structure. He died in federal prison in 1981, having successfully protected the Genovese family's real leadership through his willingness to serve as a front boss, who absorbed law enforcement attention while others remained safely invisible. How does accepting visible authority become a form of sacrifice that protects an organization's real power structure? You're walking through Naples's Spanish Quarters now, where narrow alleys echo with the sounds of daily life, and one man's royal pretensions mask a criminal empire built on fear and tradition. Nicola Pianese controlled one of Naples's most powerful Camorra clans during the organization's most violent period, earning the nickname the Prince for his aristocratic pretensions and elaborate ceremonies that mixed criminal rituals with pseudo-royal pageantry. His organization dominated drug trafficking, extortion, and illegal gambling throughout central Naples, generating millions while maintaining strict hierarchical traditions that emphasized respect, honor, and absolute obedience to clan leadership. Born into a family already established in Camorra activities, he inherited leadership during the 1980s, when cocaine trafficking created unprecedented opportunities for wealth and territorial expansion. His code combined traditional Neapolitan criminal customs with personal grandiosity. Elaborate initiation ceremonies bound members through blood oaths, territorial boundaries were defended through immediate violence, and personal respect was maintained through spectacular displays of wealth and power. His organization's war with rival clans led to hundreds of deaths during the 1980s and early 1990s, conflicts that demonstrated both the Camorra's power and its ultimate self-destructive nature. His arrest in 1992 and subsequent conviction for multiple murders ended his reign, though his influence on Camorra traditions and rituals continued long after his imprisonment. He died in prison in 2006, having demonstrated how traditional criminal customs could adapt to modern drug trafficking while maintaining ancient codes of honor and respect. How do ancient criminal traditions survive and adapt when transplanted to modern drug trafficking enterprises? You're walking through 1970s Cleveland now, where steel mills smoke in the distance and one man's ethnic pride and violent temper challenge Italian-American organized crime dominance. Daniel "Danny" Green controlled Cleveland's Irish-American criminal enterprises while waging a spectacular war against the city's Italian-American crime families, earning fame for his survival of multiple assassination attempts and his defiant Irish nationalism. His organization controlled labor racketeering, illegal gambling, and loan sharking throughout Cleveland's working-class neighborhoods, generating substantial profits while maintaining fierce independence from Italian Mafia control. Born into poverty on Cleveland's East Side, he learned that ethnic pride and personal courage could overcome superior numbers and firepower when combined with strategic thinking and community support. His code emphasized Irish identity and personal honor. Ethnic heritage was worth fighting for regardless of consequences. Personal courage was more important than survival, and cooperation with enemies was forbidden, even when facing overwhelming odds. His war with the Cleveland crime family lasted over a decade and included numerous car bombings, assassination attempts, and spectacular displays of violence that attracted national media attention. His death in a car bombing on October 6, 1977, ended one of the most publicized ethnic conflicts in American organized crime history, though his legend continued inspiring books, films, and cultural celebrations of Irish-American resistance to Italian-American criminal dominance. His funeral drew thousands of mourners who saw him as an ethnic hero rather than a criminal leader. How does ethnic pride become a powerful enough force to challenge superior criminal organizations through sheer determination? You're sitting in a Brazilian cafe now, where tropical breezes carry the scent of coffee, and one man's international connections transform traditional Sicilian crime into a global enterprise. Tommaso Buscetta built bridges between Sicilian Cosa Nostra and American crime families, while establishing extensive operations in South America, earning the nickname the Boss of Two Worlds for his ability to coordinate criminal enterprises across multiple continents. His organization controlled heroin trafficking from Sicily to New York and cocaine, smuggling from South America to Europe, generating hundreds of millions through sophisticated international networks that operated with diplomatic-level coordination. Born in Sicily to a family already involved in mafia activities, he learned that criminal success required international thinking and cultural adaptation that transcended traditional territorial boundaries. His code emphasized international cooperation and business efficiency. Profitable relationships superseded ethnic loyalties. Systematic corruption was more effective than territorial violence, and strategic thinking was superior to traditional criminal methods. His decision to cooperate with Italian prosecutors in the 1980s provided unprecedented insight into international organized crime operations and led to hundreds of convictions throughout Europe and America. His testimony in the Maxi trial exposed the connections between Sicilian families and American organizations, revolutionizing law enforcement understanding of international criminal cooperation. He died in 2000 while living under government protection, having transformed from international crime boss to the most important organized crime witness in European history. How does a traditional Sicilian criminal become powerful enough to coordinate crime families across multiple continents? You're entering a 1960s New York social club now, where old men discuss neighborhood affairs, and one of the last surviving members of organized crime's golden age shares stories of a vanished world. John, Sonny Franzesi, served as underboss of the Colombo crime family for over 5 decades, becoming one of the longest-serving and most respected figures in American organized crime history. His organization controlled illegal gambling, loan sharking, and legitimate businesses throughout New York, generating millions through systematic criminal enterprises that operated with traditional codes of honor and respect. Born in Naples and raised in New York, he learned criminal trades during the 1940s and built a reputation for intelligence, loyalty, and strategic thinking that made him valuable to multiple generations of crime family leadership. His code emphasized old world values and organizational loyalty. Family honor superseded personal interests. Cooperation with law enforcement was forbidden under any circumstances, and respect was earned through consistent demonstration of courage and reliability over many decades. His ability to avoid major convictions for most of his career demonstrated both his intelligence and the protection provided by traditional criminal codes that emphasized silence and mutual loyalty. His conviction in 2010, at age 93, made him one of the oldest defendants ever prosecuted for organized crime activities, though he maintained dignity and silence throughout legal proceedings. He died in 2020 at age 103, having witnessed the complete transformation of American organized crime from ethnic neighborhood gangs to international criminal enterprises, while maintaining traditional values throughout his extraordinary career. How does a man live over a century while maintaining loyalty to criminal codes that demand silence and sacrifice? You're walking through East Harlem now, where the aroma of Italian cooking drifts from family restaurants and one man's public role conceals a crime family's invisible power structure. Anthony "Fat" Tony Salerno served as the public face of the Genovese crime family while the real power remained with other leaders, demonstrating how modern organized crime adapted to federal pressure through elaborate deception and misdirection. His organization controlled illegal gambling, loan sharking, and labor racketeering throughout New York, generating hundreds of millions, while maintaining the fiction that Salerno made all important decisions and bore responsibility for family operations. Born in East Harlem to Italian-American parents, he learned that visible leadership in federal law enforcement's crosshairs required accepting inevitable prosecution while protecting the organization's actual decision-makers. His code emphasized organizational survival over personal freedom. Protecting the family's real structure was more important than individual liberty. Visible authority was less valuable than actual influence, and maintaining organizational deception justified personal sacrifice. His conviction in the Commission case of 1986 resulted in a 100-year sentence that he accepted without cooperation or complaint, maintaining silence about the family's real power structure until his death. He died in federal prison in 1992, having successfully served as a decoy boss whose public prominence allowed the Genovese family's actual leaders to operate invisibly for decades. His sacrifice demonstrated how traditional organized crime values could adapt to modern law enforcement pressure through strategic deception and personal loyalty to organizational needs over individual survival. How does accepting a false public role become the ultimate expression of loyalty to a criminal organization? You're standing outside a 1950s bank now, where the click of dress shoes on marble floors echoes with memories of America's most famous bank robber and his polite approach to spectacular crime. Willie Sutton robbed over 100 banks during a career spanning 3 decades, earning the nickname the Gentleman Bank Robber for his polite demeanor and nonviolent methods that made him a folk hero to Depression-era Americans. His organization consisted primarily of carefully selected partners who shared his philosophy that successful crime required intelligence, planning, and respect for innocent victims who happened to be present during criminal enterprises. Born into poverty in Brooklyn, he learned that bank robbery could be both profitable and relatively safe when conducted with proper preparation and professional courtesy toward employees and customers. His code emphasized nonviolence and strategic planning. Innocent people should never be harmed during criminal activities. Careful preparation prevented unnecessary risks, and professional behavior earned respect from both victims and law enforcement officials. His numerous escapes from prison, including 3 successful breakouts from maximum security facilities, demonstrated both his intelligence and his determination to continue his criminal career despite repeated captures and convictions. His famous response when asked why he robbed banks, "Because that's where the money is," became one of the most quoted explanations of criminal motivation in American history, though he later denied ever making the statement. He died in 1980, after spending over half his adult life in various prisons, having achieved a unique form of criminal celebrity that balanced public fascination with law enforcement respect for his nonviolent methods. How does a bank robber become a beloved folk hero while repeatedly breaking the law and evading justice? You're walking through early 1900s Sicily now, where ancient traditions meet modern challenges, and one man's adherence to old-world codes makes him the final symbol of traditional Mafia honor. Vito Cascioferro represented the last generation of traditional Sicilian Mafia leaders who operated according to ancient codes of honor, respect, and territorial control that predated modern organized crime's emphasis on drug trafficking and international operations. His organization controlled agricultural estates, political appointments, and traditional protection rackets throughout western Sicily, generating wealth through methods that had remained essentially unchanged for over a century. Born into a family already established in Mafia activities, he learned that real power came through community respect, strategic alliances, and careful maintenance of ancient customs that connected criminal leadership to legitimate social authority. His code emphasized honor above profit. Personal reputation was more valuable than financial gain. Community respect superseded individual ambition, and traditional methods were superior to modern innovations that attracted government attention. His brief visit to New York in 1901 demonstrated early connections between Sicilian and American criminal organizations, though he preferred Sicily's traditional structures to America's chaotic criminal opportunities. His arrest and conviction in 1926 by Cesare Mori's anti-mafia campaign marked the end of traditional mafia leadership and the beginning of modern organized crime's emphasis on profit over honor. He died in prison in 1932, having maintained his dignity and silence throughout imprisonment, becoming a symbol of traditional criminal values that subsequent generations both admired and abandoned. How does the last representative of ancient criminal traditions maintain honor and dignity while witnessing the complete transformation of his world?